Every summoned hero got a combat skill. Dachi's circle exploded with black lightning, and a horned war beast crawled out of it, 10 times bigger than the tiny leather bag that appeared in my hands. The beast hit the marble floor on all fours, then rose until its horns scraped sparks from the summoning hall's silver ceiling. It looked like a minotaur built for war, all black hide, iron muscle, and yellow eyes that already hated the first person it saw. The priests called his skill Beast Tyrant. The king smiled. Dachi smiled wider. That was the kind of power a kingdom wanted from a summoned hero. Loud, huge, easy to understand. A monster that made the air shake just by breathing. Then my circle lit up. Storage. A little brown bag dropped into my palms, barely big enough to hold 1 coin pouch. The priest stared at it for a second, like the system had made a spelling mistake. Then he read the description out loud. Single item storage. Capacity, 1 object. For 1 second, the hall went quiet. Then Dachi laughed. His war beast stepped beside me, and one claw was bigger than my entire skill. Perfect, Dachi said. Even in another world, you're still the weakest. Everyone laughed after that. Some tried to hide it, most didn't. It felt exactly like school. Same faces, same order, same people waiting for someone stronger to decide what was funny. Maki should have been the first one to look at me. She was my girlfriend before we were summoned. At least, that was what she called herself when nobody important was watching. Back home, when Dashi shoved my desk into the wall, she told me not to make it awkward. When he copied my homework, she said I should take it as a compliment. When he called me useless in front of everyone, she laughed, then apologized later like that made it disappear. In the summoning hall, she finally stopped pretending. Her circle flashed red and black, and a rose-shaped mist opened around her hands. Lifesteal. The priests murmured like it was beautiful. A rare skill. A dangerous skill. A power that could take strength from an enemy and pour it back into her own body. Everyone looked at her like she was mysterious and special. I looked at her and thought it fit too well. Maki glanced at the bag in my hands. Then she ran straight past me. She went to Dachi and hugged him like he was the hero she had been waiting for since the moment we landed in this world. Dachi looked over her shoulder at me like he had won, but I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was looking at the message only I could see. A hidden effect unlocked. Any item placed inside storage will upgrade to its maximum possible level. Current limit, 1 item. 1 item. Not useless. Restricted. There was a difference, and years of strategy games had taught me exactly what that meant. A weak starting skill with a broken scaling mechanic was not trash. It was late game power pretending to be garbage. Dachi was still laughing when I walked across the summoning hall and slapped him across the face. The sound cracked through the room louder than any spell. The hall went still. Dachi stumbled 1 step. Maki screamed like I had done something impossible. His minotaur beast lowered its head and growled, but it did not move right away. That was the first crack in Dachi's perfect power. The beast wanted to attack. Dachi wanted it to wait. For 1 breath, it listened to neither. The guards reached me before anyone else decided what to do. 2 of them caught my arms. A third stepped between me and the minotaur. I did not fight them. There was no point. A room full of priests, knights, summoned heroes, and 1 massive war beast was not a room I could win in. Not yet. The king finally looked interested. He leaned forward on his throne, Asta then rested, eyes moving from Dachi's red cheek, to Maki clinging to him, to the tiny bag in my hand. He did not ask why I slapped him. He did not ask what Dachi said. He only judged what was useful. Then he raised 1 hand. 7 days outside the barrier, the king said. If the storage boy returns alive, we will decide whether he has any use. The hall went silent again. This time nobody laughed. Everyone knew what that meant. The barrier was the only thing keeping the kingdom safe from the wilderness. Outside it, monsters owned the roads after sunset. Even trained knights did not leave alone unless they had scouts, healers, and a beast handler. Sending me out there with no weapon, no beast, no magic output, and a bag that could only hold 1 object was not a fair punishment. It was an execution with a countdown. Dashi recovered first. He rubbed his cheek, then smiled like the sentence had healed his pride. Try not to get eaten by a rabbit, he said. Maki did not say anything. That was fine. Her silence had always been her most honest answer. The guards dragged me out of the summoning hall, down a long corridor lined with banners, and through the outer gate. The air outside the castle was colder. The road sloped away from the walls into open grass and distant trees. At the gatehouse, 1 guard tossed something at my feet. 10 bronze coins scattered in the dirt. Enough for a meal and a dirty floor, he said. If your mighty bag can even carry them. The other guards laughed. I crouched, picked up 1 bronze coin, and dropped it into the bag. The bag opened. Then it closed. I picked up a 2nd coin. The mouth of the bag stayed sealed. I tried a 3rd. Nothing. The first guard nearly bent over laughing. It really can only hold 1. The royal storage hero, another said. Defeated by pocket change. I left the other 9 bronze in the dirt. They thought that was the joke. I saw the first investment. As I walked away from the kingdom, a thin line of text appeared at the edge of my vision. Item stored. Bronze coin. Upgrade in progress. Current form hidden until extraction. I almost laughed. Not because this was easy. It was not easy. I had no food, no map, no allies, no clue how the monsters in this world actually fought. But I had a system, and systems had rules. Rules could be tested. Rules could be broken. 7 days. That was the sentence. I turned it into a plan. First, money. Without a bankroll, I would be sleeping in mud and fighting with my hands. Second, experience. If levels mattered in this world, then I needed a repeatable way to turn monsters into growth. Third, a way home. Because surviving the crown did not mean I belonged to it. Money, levels, a route back. If I returned with all three, the king would not be deciding whether I had value. He would be trying to figure out how he had thrown it away. Day 1 had one objective. Get money and shelter before night reached the road. So I walked toward the nearest village with one bronze coin inside a useless bag, while behind me the kingdom closed its gate like I was already gone. By the time the village lights appeared, my school uniform was dirty at the cuffs, my legs hurt from walking, and the sun had turned orange behind the hills. The place was not impressive. A wooden palisade leaned around a cluster of stone and timber buildings. Smoke rose from low chimneys. A watchman stood near the gate with a spear that looked older than him. He saw my clothes before he saw my face. That was the first thing people noticed. Not the bag, the uniform, black jacket, white shirt, classroom shoes ruined by a dirt road. Nothing about me matched this world. Watchman's eyes widened. Summoned one? I could have lied. I did not know enough yet to make a good lie. Yes. His grip tightened on the spear. Not worship, not excitement, fear and caution. That told me something important. The kingdom loved summoned heroes in the palace. Villages outside the comfortable walls had a different opinion. In is straight ahead, he said. Don't start trouble. Wasn't planning to. He looked at the tiny bag on my side, then at my empty hands, and seemed to decide I was either harmless or already doomed. Both worked for me. The inn had a faded sign hanging above the door. A painted fox curled around a mug. Inside, the common room smelled like stew, wet wood, and people who had worked all day. Conversation thinned when I stepped in. A few men at the back table looked me over. A woman carrying plates stopped between tables. The innkeeper stood behind the counter. Broad shoulders, gray beard, sleeves rolled past his elbows. His eyes went straight to my uniform. You're from the castle. Not anymore. That got more attention than I wanted. I walked to the counter and kept my voice low. I need a room, 1 meal if you have it. The innkeeper looked me up and down. 3 bronze for the common room floor, 5 for the small bed, 10 for the best room, meal is 2. I nodded like I had options. Then I reached into the bag. My fingers touched cold metal. For 1 second, I felt the shape of a coin. Then I pulled it out. It was not bronze anymore. It was pale, heavy, and stamped with a crown I had not seen before. The common room went quiet. The innkeeper did not touch it at first. He just stared. Then he reached out carefully, picked it up with 2 fingers, and held it near the lamp. His face changed. Respect did not come first. Panic did. I can't accept this. That was not the reaction I expected. It's fake? No. His voice dropped. That's the problem. The woman with the plates came closer. She saw the coin and nearly dropped an entire bowl of stew. The innkeeper put the coin down like it might explode. We couldn't change a platinum if we emptied the whole till. Most of this village has never seen one. I can't take this for a room. A platinum. The system had just turned 1 bronze into 1 platinum. I kept my face calm because the room was watching. Inside, the number landed hard. 1 platinum was worth 10 gold, 100 silver, 1,000 bronze. The king had banished me with pity money. My useless bag had turned it into a fortune. The innkeeper pushed the coin back toward me. Put it away, quietly, before someone stupid sees it and thinks about doing something stupid. Too late for that. Everyone had seen it. At the back table, one man whispered something to another. A hooded traveler near the wall stopped stirring his cup. He had not taken a single drink since I walked in. I noticed him. I did not look long. Looking too long tells a watcher they have been seen. I placed my hand over the platinum. Then don't change it. The innkeeper blinked. What? Keep it. I need food, a room, local information, and someone to vouch for me at the guild tomorrow. The king gave me 7 days outside the barrier. If I survive, I prove I have some use. If I don't, nobody in the castle loses anything. The room went quieter. Not shocked quiet. Angry quiet. Not at me. At the sentence. The innkeeper looked toward the gate, then back at my uniform. They threw a summoned boy out alone. After giving me storage, I lifted the tiny bag. Someone near the hearth snorted before he could stop himself. The innkeeper did not laugh. He looked at the bag, then at the platinum, then at my face. How old are you? 17. His jaw tightened. R.E. The woman with the plates set the stew down on the counter. You're eating first, talking after. That was how my first alliance in this world started. Not with a vow, not with a contract, with stew. It was too salty, too thin, and the best thing I had eaten since the summoning. The innkeeper's name did not matter yet, neither did his wife's. What mattered was that they treated the platinum like a responsibility, not just money. They moved me to a corner table, kept their voices low, and told the room I had paid for lodging through the week. Nobody challenged it. 1 platinum was more than this inn probably saw in a year. That kind of coin changed the shape of a room. The hooded traveler left before I finished the bowl. He left too cleanly. No stumble, no farewell, no empty cup. I filed him away. Later, upstairs, the innkeeper showed me their best room. It was damp. The ceiling had a dark water stain near the corner. The blankets smelled like smoke. The shutters did not close all the way. He looked embarrassed. It's the best we have. It's a room with a door. That's already better than the road. His wife brought bread, cheese, and a second bowl of stew. Then she stood there like she wanted to ask something but was afraid of pushing too hard. The innkeeper asked for her. What happened in the castle? I could have given them the clean version. Bad skill, bad temper, bad luck. Instead, maybe because I was tired, I gave them enough of the real one. I told them about the summoning hall, about Dachi and his Minotaur beast, about Maki running to him. I did not dress it up as heartbreak. That would have given her too much credit. She was always like that, I said. Back home, when Dachi made me the joke, she told me to ignore him. Then she laughed anyway. Today, she just picked the winning side faster. The innkeeper's wife made a small sound. And you hit him? Slapped him. The innkeeper looked down at the tiny bag on my hip. With no weapon and no magic. I had one good moment left. I used it. He stared at me for a second. Then he laughed once, quietly. Foolish. Probably. Still, he said, I understand it. That helped more than it should have. Before they left, the innkeeper disappeared downstairs and came back with a wrapped object. He placed it on the bed. We don't have adventurer gear. This village gets what the guild doesn't want, but if you're going there tomorrow, take this. I unwrapped it. An old carving knife. Not a sword, not a dagger made for fighting. A kitchen blade with a worn wooden grip, a stained edge, and a nick near the tip. We use it for breaking down monster meat when hunters bring something in, he said. It cuts hide better than it looks. To anyone else, it was almost insulting. To me, it was perfect. A tool already tied to monster harvesting. A weak item with a specific purpose. Those were the best things to upgrade. I thanked him and waited until the door closed. Then I opened the bag. The platinum was no longer inside, of course. I had spent it. The bag was empty again. I slid the carving knife in. The leather mouth swallowed it with no resistance. Black panel appeared. Item stored, worn carving knife. Upgrade in progress. Estimated completion, 7 hours, 58 minutes. Current form unknown until extraction. I sat on the edge of the damp bed and read that twice. Unknown until extraction. So the bag would not tell me what I had until I took it out. That meant every use was a gamble, but a gamble with a timer was still a system. I lay back, stared at the stained ceiling, and smiled despite myself. Objective 1 was money. Objective 2 was a way to turn danger into levels. If that knife became what I thought it might become, then tomorrow I would not need a party to carry me. I would need a party to lead me to the first pile of monsters. The bag glowed faintly beside the bed while I slept. By morning, the rain had stopped. The room smelled like damp wood, and the first thing I checked was the bag. The timer was gone. Upgrade complete. Current form hidden until extraction. I almost pulled the knife out right there. Then I stopped. That was beginner impatience. If the item came out glowing, humming, or obviously impossible, I did not want the whole village seeing it before I understood what it did, so I left it inside. That decision made the next hour more annoying than it needed to be. Downstairs, the innkeeper had already prepared breakfast and a story. The story was for the guild. I was not a royal exile with a suspicious platinum coin and a useless bag. I was a paid guest under his roof who needed temporary adventurer registration for legal work. A stranger needs a local name behind him, he explained as we walked through the village. Otherwise, the guild assumes you're a bandit, spy, runaway debtor, or worse. What's worse than those? Noble's problem. Fair. The guild outpost sat near the east gate, a squat stone building with a monster skull over the door and a quest board hammered full of paper. It looked less like a grand adventurer hall and more like a warehouse with weapons. Inside, people were already moving. A pair of fighters checked shield straps near the wall. A mage in a blue scarf counted glass vials. Someone with a small hawk-like beast on his shoulder argued with the clerk about travel pay. 3 porters were tying ropes around bundles of tools. The room smelled like oil, leather, and wet iron. The innkeeper walked me to the front desk. The clerk looked bored until he heard the vouch. Temporary registration? For him, the innkeeper said. The clerk's eyes moved to my clothes. The boredom thinned. You are not from here. No. Name? Tommy. He dipped a pen into ink. Age? 17. Origin? I hesitated for half a breath. No point hiding what my clothes already shouted. Summoned. The pen stopped. So did half the room. Someone near the quest board turned fully around. The mage with the blue scarf lowered 1 vial. The hawk beast clicked its beak. The clerk looked up slowly. Summoned, he repeated. The word traveled through the hall faster than any spell. A summoned person meant royal ceremony. It meant huge mana output. It meant a class worth feeding, guarding, and training. Even in a poor village outpost, people knew what summoned heroes were supposed to become. For 10 seconds, nobody laughed. They stared like I had walked in carrying a crown. The clerk became careful. Class? Storage carrier. That took some of the shine out of the room. Not all. Storage could still be useful. In a world with monster parts, travel supplies, and dungeon loot, a good storage skill had value. The clerk reached under the desk and set a clear crystal on a brass stand. Place your hand here. Standard output test. A summoned person should flare the crystal at least gold, sometimes white. Every eye moved to my hand. I placed my palm on the crystal. Nothing happened. No light, no pulse, no faint glow pretending to be special. The crystal stayed clear. The clerk frowned and tapped the brass base. Again. I tried again. Still nothing. A long, confused silence stretched through the guild hall. Then someone said, "Is it broken?" The clerk tested it with his own finger. The crystal glowed pale green. A few people laughed. Then more. The awe drained out of the room so fast it almost made a sound. A summon with no mana output? How does that even happen? Maybe the kingdom threw him out for a reason. Storage carrier with no mana. That's not a class, that's a backpack with legs. I kept my face still. Inside, I logged the information. No mana output, not low, none. The kingdom had said awakened power was fixed. You got your skill, your class, your value, and that was it. If the crystal was right, then publicly I was even worse than I looked. Privately, I had a bag that had turned bronze into platinum overnight. So, I did not correct anyone. The clerk cleared his throat, trying to regain the professional tone he had lost. Skill test. You said storage, show capacity. I can't. That made the laughter sharper. You can't use your own skill? It's already holding one thing. The clerk blinked. Empty it. No. The room liked that. A fighter near the wall slapped his knee. A storage skill so bad he can't even prove it. The clerk looked annoyed now. Capacity? One object. One object, he repeated. I nodded. His pen scratched hard enough to almost tear the paper. A few seconds later, he stamped a thin wooden card and slid it across the desk. Public registration appeared in black letters. Name, Tommy. Origin, summoned. Class, storage carrier. Skill, single item storage. Mana output, none detected. Combat rating, none. Adventurer grade, provisional porter. Provisional porter. Not even adventurer, not fighter, not scout, not mage. A person legally allowed to carry other people's things. The clerk pushed the card closer. You can take labor work, salvage work, and porter contracts. No solo combat quests. No dungeon entry unless attached to a registered party. If you cause a party wipe, your vouching in pays the fine. The innkeeper stiffened beside me. I picked up the card. Understood. Trod? That answer disappointed the room. They wanted embarrassment. I gave them compliance. Compliance got me closer to a dungeon. A shout came from near the quest board. We still need a porter. Ours drank himself under the table. The clerk looked toward the voice, then back to me. Lucky day. Cave clearing party heading out now. Low mid dungeon. They need someone to carry tools and harvest sacks. Pay is poor, but it is legal. The man who shouted looked me over and smirked. Can he lift? He has arms, the clerk said. Any magic? The room laughed before the clerk answered. None detected. The man shrugged. Fine, give him the bags. That was how I joined my first dungeon party. Not as a hero, not as a fighter, as the extra pair of hands nobody wanted to waste healing on. They did not give me their names, that was fine, I did not need them. They gave me weight instead. Ropes, empty core jars, folded salvage cloth, iron wedges, a bundle of torches, 3 water skins, a coil of binding cord, a pack of harvesting tools that clinked against my back with every step. The bag at my side could have changed everything if I showed them what was inside. I kept it closed. One object, one secret. For now, my shoulders could suffer. The walk to the dungeon was short, barely outside the village fields, and into a rocky slope where pine trees grew between gray stone. The party moved fast, so the explanation came in pieces. Monster cores are the money, one of them said without looking back. Do not crack them. Cracked cores sell cheap. Another tapped one of the empty jars hanging from my pack. Clean cores go in glass. Bloody materials go in cloth. Teeth, claws, scales, horns, anything intact. If you make a mess harvesting, the guild docks the price. The beast handler's hawk circled overhead. Bosses can drop gear, skill shards, or rare materials, he added. You see anything glowing, you call one of us before touching it. What does a porter get? I asked. The lead fighter snorted. Less than the people keeping him alive, usually 20% if the contract is generous, less if he slows us down. 20% of dungeon loot. For a normal porter, that was crumbs. For me, it was access. The cave entrance appeared ahead, a black crack in the hillside with old claw marks around the stone. The party stopped joking. That was the first time I saw them become something organized. The shield fighter moved to the front. The mage checked her vials and loosened her fingers. The beast handler lowered his hand, and the hawk dropped silently to a lower branch. The support adjusted the charms around his wrist. Everyone had a place. Everyone knew it. The lead fighter pointed at me. Porter stays in the back. Do not touch anything during combat. Do not run ahead. Do not make us waste mana protecting you. When we clear a room, you move when I say move. I looked past him into the cave. Dark stone, damp air, the faint scrape of something moving deeper in. Then I looked at the formation. Front line first. Damage behind him, summoner watching the sides. Support keeping everyone upright. Porter in the back waiting for the field to be safe. They thought that made me the least important person in the raid, but it also put me closest to every core after the fight. The bag at my side was quiet. The upgraded knife inside it waited. For the first time since the king threw me out, I felt the shape of step 2. Money got me through the door. This cave was where experience started. The party entered the cave in the same order they had practiced 100 times. Shield first, damage behind him, summoner watching the walls, support in the middle, me at the back with enough rope, glass, and metal on my shoulders to build a small shop. Topic balance, I fiv. The cave narrowed almost immediately. Wet stone pressed close on both sides, and the torchlight broke across old claw marks in the walls. Then the first goblin came running out of the dark. It was small, fast, and carrying a knife made from something that had once been a cooking pan. 3 more followed it. Then 6. The shield fighter did not chase them. He planted 1 boot, pushed mana through his shoulders, and became a wall. The first goblin bounced off his shield hard enough to knock down the 2 behind it. The mage flicked 2 fingers. A narrow line of fire crossed the tunnel, forcing the rest into a single lane. Fighter swung once. The whole rush ended in seconds. Fast but stupid. Punish the charge. Do not chase. Let them enter the space where they have already lost. It was exactly how the first wave worked in a strategy game I used to play after school. The game always started with cheap rushing units. Their purpose was not to beat you. Their purpose was to make you panic and break formation. This party did not panic. They moved on. The next chamber opened vertically. Bone arrows came down before I even saw who fired them. The support raised both hands, and a pale shield curved over the party. Arrows snapped against it like dry sticks. Above us, skeleton troops stood on narrow ledges with bows drawn and empty light burning in their eye sockets. They were fragile. That did not matter while they had height and distance. The party archer put 1 arrow through the nearest skull. The mage froze the footing beneath the second line. The beast summoner whistled once, and his hawk shot upward through the arrow rain, scattering the remaining shooters long enough for the archer to finish them. Ranged enemies did not need armor. They just needed everyone to forget they existed. The third encounter waited in a passage barely wide enough for it. An ogre stepped into the torchlight with a club thicker than my body. It raised the weapon slowly. The fighter shifted left. The ogre swung. The club struck the wall where he had been and buried itself in stone. The mage did not cast until that moment. Her spell struck behind the ogre's knee. The archer hit the wrist. The fighter drove his shield into its chest before it could pull the club free. Huge strength. Long wind-up, long recovery. Punish the miss. The ogre fell across the passage, and the party stepped over it without celebrating. They had expected to win. The stone lizards were different. They waited on the walls and ceiling, almost invisible, until one opened its mouth and fired a blast of grit that turned the air gray. The fighter's axe bounced off the first lizard's back. An arrow cracked against another and dropped harmlessly. The creatures stayed low, armored from above, using their tails to sweep the floor and break everyone's footing. The beast summoner became the center of the fight. His contracted hound lunged under one lizard, caught it behind the front leg, and twisted. The creature rolled onto its side. The mage placed 1 precise bolt beneath its jaw. The fighter pinned a second, while the support cleared dust from his eyes. Control first, damage second. Armor meant nothing once someone else forced the weak point open. The whole sequence, from goblins to skeleton troops, from ogre to stone lizards, took less time than the walk from the village. 2 or 3 clean movements from each person. No speeches, no wasted magic. Every member fought the kind of enemy their role handled best. I stayed behind them and watched. The guild party had 5 people, but really it had 5 jobs. Hold attention, deal damage, control space, keep everyone standing, find what the others missed. It was not just a party, it was a template. The boss chamber combined everything the cave had shown us. A stone-crowned ogre waited in the center, taller than the first ogre and plated along one shoulder with natural rock. Smaller stone lizards crawled between the pillars around it. The raid leader pointed behind me. Stay at the entrance. If it charges, move farther back. Do not make us turn around for you. I nodded and moved to the wall. This time, nobody fought alone. The shield fighter drew the ogre's attention and kept its plated side turned away from the mage. The summoner's hound cut across the chamber, forcing the smaller lizards off the fighter's legs. The support reinforced the shield whenever the ogre's club came down. The archer struck joints, eyes, and every opening the fighter created. The mage waited. That was the detail I noticed. She had enough mana to throw fire from the first second. She did not. She waited until the ogre committed to a full swing. The fighter stepped inside the arc. The summoner's hound struck the back of its knee. The ogre dropped 1 level. The stone plate along its shoulder separated from the skin beneath it. Then the mage released everything. A white-blue spear crossed the room and entered the exposed seam. The boss went down so hard the chamber floor jumped beneath my shoes. For a second, nobody moved. Then the raid leader lowered his shield. Clear. The party relaxed all at once. That was when they remembered I existed. Order, the leader called. Start with the boss core, then the lizards. Keep the plates intact. They dropped their harvesting cloth beside me and moved away to drink, check wounds, and argue about which materials would sell highest. The gross work was mine. The slow work was mine. The thing none of them wanted to touch was mine. I reached for the worn carving knife the innkeeper had given me. Then I remembered it had been inside the bag since the previous night. I had spent the entire raid carrying steel tools on my back while a completed upgrade waited at my hip. I opened the bag. Rainbow light leaked through the opening. I stared into it. That is not the knife I went to bed with. The weapon that came out was still short enough to be called a carving knife, but nothing else about it belonged in a kitchen. Gold lines ran through the dark blade. Small jewels rested along the grip. A shifting aura moved over the edge in colors that did not stay still long enough to name. A message opened in front of me. Upgrade complete. Worn carving knife has reached maximum form. New item, mythical aura blade. Perfect harvest, EXP siphon, 100-fold drop loom, loot grade ascension. The raid leader noticed the light. Where did you get that? The inn kitchen. He looked at me, then at the blade, then decided I was making a joke too stupid to investigate. Just do the job. I touched the edge to the first stone lizard. The chamber flashed. A clean mana core rose from the creature without resistance. Then a second item appeared beside it. Then 5. Then enough material to cover the harvesting cloth. Perfect scales. Purified stone dust. A small shield plate. Coins. A glowing fragment of skill energy. The party stopped talking. A second message opened. Perfect harvest activated. Contribution recalculated. EXP gained. 100-fold drop bloom triggered. Loot grade increased. Level gained. The feeling hit a moment later. Heat moved through my arms and chest. My breathing became easier. The weight of the porter bags felt slightly less ridiculous. I had not landed the final strike. The blade had counted harvesting as contribution. I touched the next creature. Another burst. The archer stood up. That dungeon does not drop that. The mage came closer. It just did. The third harvest filled 2 more cloths. The fourth created a core so pure the beast summoner reached for it without asking. I moved it away first. Porter, the raid leader said, faster. We do not have all day. I looked at the mountain of materials around my knees. Yeah, hold on. The bag pulsed. Storage vessel has absorbed high-grade loot resonance. Stage progress complete. Storage stage 2 unlocked. Previous capacity, 1 object. New capacity, 5 small objects or 1 medium object. Living conversion seed detected. The bag did not grow on the outside. That was the funniest part. It remained a tiny brown pouch, barely large enough to hold a coin purse. Inside, the space unfolded. I grabbed the nearest monster cores and placed them in one after another. 1 goblin core, 1 skeleton core, 1 ogre core, 1 stone lizard core. The 5th slot stayed open. The party assumed I was finally using my storage skill correctly. For approximately 10 seconds, so did I. Then the bag kicked against my hand. Something inside squeaked. I opened it. A tiny goblin tumbled onto the stone. It was barely taller than my boot, wearing a scrap of leather armor and holding a dagger the size of a dinner knife. A name tag appeared above its head. Storage summon, Goblin Scout, rank, legendary seed, level 1, owner, Tommy, EXP share, active. The second creature crawled out behind it. A small skeleton archer assembled itself from pale light, bow already in hand. Then came a baby ogre with oversized fists and the balance of a tired toddler. Last came a stone lizard no longer than my forearm. It planted itself between me and the party and made a sound like 2 rocks rubbing together. Nobody spoke. The goblin scout looked up at me. The baby ogre sat down. The skeleton archer drew an arrow at the ceiling for no reason. The stone lizard continued guarding my left shoe. The beast summoner crouched slowly. Those were our cores. Not anymore, I said. He reached toward the lizard. The name tag brightened. Bonded summons cannot be transferred. The lizard snapped at his glove. He pulled back. The party stared at the 4 creatures. Then someone laughed. It was not the same laugh as the guild hall. This one came from confusion trying to protect itself. Legendary, the archer said. That thing could lose a fight to a bucket. The baby ogre tried to stand, tipped forward and caught itself with both hands. More laughter. I saw tiny monsters. I saw level 1. There was a difference. The bag had upgraded what they could become, not skipped the path required to get there. The goblin scout noticed a wounded cave pest moving near the wall. It ran forward, stabbed once, and jumped back. Message appeared. Storage summon gained EXP. EXP share active. Tommy gained linked EXP. Goblin Scout growth accelerated by Aura Blade contribution. Step 2 became real in that moment. I did not need to find one unbeatable monster. I needed a repeatable way to turn every cleared core into a creature that could grow beside me. The party did not share my excitement. The raid leader looked at the missing cores, the bonded name tags, and the loot piled across the chamber. Those cores belonged to the contract. You told me to store them. We told you to harvest them. I did. He argued for several minutes with the mage and the beast summoner. None of them knew what category to put the summons under. They could not sell them, they could not take them, they could not pretend they were still cores. So they did what people usually did when a rule did not benefit them. They changed the payment. 5%, the leader said when we reached the cave exit. 5 gold. The bonded creatures count against your share. He expected me to complain. A normal porter had been promised 20%. 5 gold was an insult compared to the upgraded hall behind us. I took the coins. Stage 2 storage could hold 5 small objects. The maximum form of gold was platinum. 1 platinum coin was worth 10 gold. They thought they had cut my pay. They had given me 5 separate investments. I placed the 5 coins into the bag. Items stored. Gold coin X5. Upgrade route detected. Maximum form platinum coin. Estimated completion 2 hours 12 minutes. The raid leader waited for anger. I smiled instead. That worried him more. The party offered to take me on their next raid. Not because they respected me. Because they wanted the blade near their loot pile again. You can porter for us tomorrow, the leader said. Same rate. No. The answer came too quickly for him. You will not find a better party at your grade. I am not looking for one. I called the 4 summons toward me. The goblin scout moved first. The stone lizard followed. The skeleton archer walked into a wall, corrected itself, and continued. I had to carry the baby ogre under one arm. The party watched us leave. From a ridge above the cave road, a hooded man watched too. He had been in the inn when the platinum coin hit the counter. He had been near the guild crystal when it called me empty. Now he was holding a small communication stone near his mouth. I could not hear the entire message from where I stood. I heard 2 words, Ark Shepherd. Then he saw me looking. He lowered the stone and disappeared into the trees. I did not chase him. I had 4 level 1 summons, a blade I barely understood, 5 gold coins becoming 5 platinum, and no mana I could actually control. Chasing a spy before I knew who paid him would have been emotional. I needed to be useful. Back at the guild, the raid hall caused exactly the kind of problem I expected. Appraisers opened sacks, stopped, checked the dungeon report, and opened them again. The stone lizard plates were too complete. The mana shards were too pure. One of the boss materials carried a rarity mark nobody had seen from that cave in years. The clerk who had laughed at my empty mana crystal stared at the table. This came from the lower cave? That is where they took me. That cave cannot produce this quantity. Then somebody should tell the cave. The raid party claimed it was luck. That explanation spread because it was easier than the truth. A hidden luck skill. A rare harvesting effect. Something that did not show on mana crystals. The wrong answer was useful. It let people become interested without understanding enough to become dangerous. I sold a small portion of my materials and kept the pieces that made the bag react. Then I went to the guild supply counter. I bought a beginner mana manual, 3 basic mana potions, monster feed, a set of cheap training wraps. The shopkeeper looked at my adventurer card. No measurable output. That is what the crystal said. Potions restore mana. They do not make talent. Then the book should be cheap. He sold it to me because my money was real even if my class was not. I read the manual in the inn's damp room while the 5 gold coins continued upgrading inside the bag. First page changed the story the crown had told us. Mana output is not fixed. A class determines affinity and starting path. Levels, circulation practice, potion support, and combat exposure can increase output over time. Even a dull crystal may indicate dormant flow rather than permanent emptiness. I read that paragraph twice. In the summoning hall, the priests had treated every first result as final. Dachi received Beast Tyrant, so he was valuable. Maki received Lifesteal, so she was rare. I received Storage and showed no mana, so I was disposable. But the cheapest book in a poor village said a first reading was only a starting point. If mana could grow, then the crystal had not measured my ceiling. It had measured level 0. The crown knew summoned students came from a world without mana training. They also knew training existed. Yet nobody in the hall had explained circulation, level growth, potion support, or the difference between starting output and potential. It did not make sense if their only goal was to make us strong enough to save them. Either they were careless on a scale too large to believe, or they wanted us strong in a very specific way, at a very specific time, without understanding how to grow outside their control. I looked at the bag. The gold coins had another hour. I placed 1 beginner mana potion inside instead, temporarily pausing the coins. The timer changed. Beginner mana potion stored. Upgrade route detected. Estimated completion 18 minutes. When I pulled it out, the cloudy blue liquid had become clear enough to reflect light like glass. Upgrade complete. New item Origin Mana Elixir. Permanently opens dormant mana channels. Permanently increases mana capacity. Unlocks basic mana circulation. Improves compatibility with aura weapons. Warning, first use may cause temporary overload. The shopkeeper had said potions did not create talent. The bag had disagreed. I drank it. Heat entered my chest first, then my arms, then every line beneath my skin seemed to open at once. I fell to one knee beside the bed, gripping the floorboards while pressure moved through places in my body I had never been able to feel before. The mythical aura blade reacted from the table. Rainbow light ran along its edge. 4 small summons reacted too. The goblin scout stood straight. The skeleton archer's eyelights brightened. The stone lizard pressed itself flat against the floor. The baby ogre began glowing and looked deeply offended by it. Dormant mana flow awakened. Basic mana circulation acquired. Mana output recalculating. Level recalculation complete. Tommy has reached level 3. The pressure settled. For the first time, I could feel mana instead of reading about it. It was not a giant ocean of power. It was a current. Small, uneven, but mine. The manual taught a basic circulation loop. Breathe in. Pull mana toward the center. Move it through the arms and legs. Return it without letting the flow break. The first attempt failed halfway through my shoulder. The second reached my hand. On the 5th, the aura blade responded. A thin silver line appeared across the table leg. Then, another message opened. Skill acquired, weak line cut. Type, combat utility. Effect, after observing a target, briefly reveals the weakest line in its movement, armor, or attack posture. Limit, close range. User must still reach and strike the line. That was not overwhelming power. It was better. It was a skill I understood. Watch. Wait. Strike where the structure failed. A second skill tried to form beneath it. Skill fragment detected. Formation link. Unlock condition not met. Requirement 3 bonded summons reach level 5. Current status dormant. The next step wrote itself. My summons needed levels. So did I. The innkeeper let me use an old storage shed behind the building after I promised not to break the wall. I brought the 4 creatures outside after dark. They looked less like a legendary force and more like a badly organized children's parade. The goblin scout rushed every target before I finished pointing. The skeleton archer missed a bottle from 6 feet and struck a bucket behind it. The baby ogre tried to block a padded training post, leaned too far, and fell over backward. The stone lizard planted itself in front of me and refused to move. That last one was accidentally correct. I assigned the roles I had seen in the cave. Scout, range, frontline, control. The goblin learned to circle instead of charging straight. The skeleton began waiting for the goblin to expose the target. The baby ogre practiced standing between me and the padded post. Stone lizard learned that turning sideways made its small armored body wide enough to block a narrow path. They were clumsy. They were tiny. They listened. That mattered more than size. Each time I practiced weak line cut with the aura blade, faint EXP moved through the bond. Storage summon training synchronized. EXP share active. Goblin Scout reached level 2, Stone Lizard reached level 2, Tommy gained linked EXP. The gains were small. The engine worked. While I was learning what the crown had not bothered to teach me, the rest of my class was still inside the barrier, hearing the same truth from royal instructors 2 days late. Their training hall was larger than the village guild and cleaner than the king's throne room had any right to be. A royal instructor stood before the summoned students and drew a circle of blue light in the air. A class is a starting path, he explained. It is not a finished state. Mana grows through use, circulation, level pressure, and controlled exposure. Fighters reinforce the body and weapon. Mages shape external forms. Beast users must establish dominance, trust, or resonance. A powerful beast without control is a liability. One student raised his hand. So it is basically like a video game? The instructor stared at him. I do not know what that is. Then he continued. Daki was not listening. He stood in the practice arena with his minotaur towering behind him. Charge the center dummy, he ordered. The beast charged the left row instead. 3 training frames exploded. A student dove out of the way. Stop. The minotaur continued to the wall, struck it once, and turned only when it felt like turning. Dachi's face went red. Kneel. The minotaur looked down at him. It did not kneel. The instructor crossed his arms. Beast Tyrant is not volume. Your beast is reflecting the tamer. Few students laughed before Dachi turned toward them. Maki practiced on the opposite side of the hall. Her lifesteal skill looked beautiful from a distance. Dark red light moved from a bound training creature into her hands. The weakness left the target and became color in her cheeks, mana around her shoulders, strength in her posture. The instructor praised the efficiency. Maki smiled modestly. Then, her eyes moved past Dashi toward an older student, whose spell had just split a stone target in half. She watched him a second too long. Dachi noticed. His minotaur noticed Daki noticing and snorted like it found the whole situation embarrassing. Above the hall, the king watched from behind a crystal screen. The students were improving, not fast enough. This batch is behind schedule, he said quietly. 5 days remain, and most still cannot circulate mana without instruction. An advisor mentioned Dachi's beast tyrant and Maki's lifesteal. The king did not look comforted. A communication crystal lit beside him. The hooded spy's report came through in a whisper. Subject Tommy survived first dungeon exposure. Storage skill produced bonded monster signatures. 4 creatures, growth classifications hidden. Possible scripture match. The advisor leaned closer. Which scripture? The spy gave the code name. Arc Shepherd. The room went still. The king looked toward the training hall below, where 40 summoned students were learning basic mana control under his supervision. Then he looked at the road beyond the barrier, where the one student he had thrown away was already building a party from monsters. That was supposed to awaken inside the barrier, the advisor said. The crystal went dark. I knew none of that yet. I only knew my summons could grow, so could I. And the kingdom had lied about at least one of those facts. 7-day plan progress. Bankroll secured. EXP engine discovered. Route home unknown. New discovery. Crown information unreliable. Time remaining 5 days. The next morning, I looked at the 4 small creatures lined up in the inn yard. Formation link remained locked. 3 of them needed to reach level 5. Training in a shed would take too long. I needed a dungeon where nobody could tell me to stay in the back. This time, I would not enter as a porter. I would bring the party myself. The 5 gold coins finished upgrading before breakfast. I knew because the bag pulsed once against my hip, the same way it had when the bronze coin became platinum. I waited until I was alone in the damp room before opening it. 5 white coins rested inside, each one stamped with a crown and edged in blue mana glass. Upgrade complete. Gold coin X5 became platinum coin X5. I held one between 2 fingers and ran the math. 1 platinum bought 10 times what the raid party had given me. They thought cutting my share from 20% to 5% had punished me. Instead, they had paid me in the one denomination my bag could still improve. I had made 10 times more by being cheated. That was the sort of trade I could live with. I separated the money in my head before I spent anything. 1 platinum for dungeon access, 1 for knowledge, mana, food, and anything my summons needed, 1 reserved for the dragon root mission the guild had been whispering about, 2 stayed untouched. A bankroll was not money you showed people. It was time you had already purchased from the future. The guild hall changed when I walked in. Yesterday, people had laughed because the mana crystal called me empty. Today, they watched me like a coin that might land on either side. The raid party had returned before me and apparently talked too much. The guild appraiser was waiting beside the counter with 3 pieces of harvested material laid out on black cloth. One was a stone lizard plate, one was a polished ogre horn, the last was a mana shard so clear it looked like frozen air. None of those things should have come from the dungeon we had cleared, not in that condition. The appraiser held out his hand. Card. I gave him my provisional porter card. He placed it over a scanning slate. The same humiliating information appeared. Storage carrier. No registered mana output. No combat rating. He looked from the card to the materials. Do you possess a luck blessing? No. A harvest trait? Not one the crystal found. Appraisal? No. His eyes narrowed. Then explain these. I cut what they told me to cut. The raid leader, standing near the wall, made an irritated sound. He touched the blade to one creature and the floor covered itself in loot. If that is not a skill, I am a palace dancer. I looked at his shield, his beard, and the shoulders that barely fit through the door. You would need a larger palace. A few people laughed. Not at me this time. The appraiser turned the mana shard under the light. Great Ascension, he said. A low dungeon source refined beyond its normal ceiling. Rare passive luck skills sometimes produce no visible output because they alter probability instead of mana. That explanation was wrong. It was also useful. The guild had found a box for me. I had no reason to kick my way out of it yet. The clerk slid a purchase form across the counter. I bought a beginner mana manual, 6 basic mana potions, hardened boots, monster feed, a pair of wrist wraps, and 2 return charms. Then I placed 1 platinum coin on the counter. The room went silent again. The clerk looked at the coin, then at me, then back at the coin. We cannot break this for purchases that small. Put the remainder on my guild account. You opened that account yesterday. Yes. You were paid 5 gold. Yes. This is platinum. You were very good at identifying currency. The clerk stopped asking questions. The Border Guild rarely handled platinum. The transaction needed 3 signatures, a tax stamp, and a crystal record. That flashed toward the Kingdom network the moment the coin entered the lockbox. That was when I saw the hooded man again. He stood near the quest board with a notice held in both hands. Upside down. Same narrow shoulders as the traveler at the inn. Same boots as the man who had watched my crystal stay dark. Same habit of never quite looking at me directly. I replayed the last 2 days in reverse. He had left the inn after my platinum coin appeared. He had been near the guild counter during my registration. He had watched the raid party return. Now he was watching a provisional porter deposit money that did not exist the previous night. The kingdom had not forgotten me. It had started counting. I let my eyes pass over him without stopping. A spy who thought he was invisible was more useful than one who knew he had been found. Across the kingdom, the same man appeared inside a communication crystal before the king. I learned what he reported much later. The subject has converted 4 monster cores into named bonded creatures, he said. Each carries an unreadable growth ceiling. He also produced ascended loot and acquired platinum with no sponsor. A royal advisor opened an old book whose pages were bound in dark metal. Carry the fallen lines and return them named, he read. The shepherd walks with a vault that is smaller than his hand and larger than a battlefield. The king's jaw tightened. Arch Shepherd, the advisor whispered. That power was supposed to awaken inside my hall, the king said. The spy waited. Do we retrieve him? No, not yet. The king looked toward the training yard, where the rest of my class practiced under royal supervision. His sentence was public. If we drag him back after calling him useless, we expose fear. Observe him. Learn the limit. He returns on the 7th day either way. The crystal dimmed. Back at the guild, a brass bell rang over the quest board. The clerk removed a red-edged request and carried it to the counter. S-rank protection roster, she announced. Seasonal Dragon Passage, Hearthglen Village. The room changed. Some adventurers looked interested. Others looked at the floor. Dragons did that to people even when the contract claimed they were only passing through. The clerk glanced at me. The guild wants your luck on the harvest team. I do not have a luck skill. Then bring whatever you used yesterday. What is the assignment? Protect the village while the migration crosses the ridge. Recover shed scales, nest minerals, damaged cores, and anything abandoned after the passage. You are not expected to fight. Which dragons? Roundbelly ember drakes, mostly B rank, young adults and late juveniles. Why this week? They wake from seasonal torpor when the ridge warms. What triggers aggression? Noise near the den mouths. Sharp mana changes. Threats to eggs. Why are beginner summon students training in the same village? The clerk's mouth opened, then closed. A man farther down the counter answered for her. Royal decision. That was not an answer. It is the only one we have. I looked at the red quest sheet. The crown knew dragons crossed that ridge. The crown knew unstable beginners would be throwing new magic into the same ground, and somehow nobody in the guild could explain why those two facts belonged together. I will take it, I said, after one private dungeon run. The clerk almost laughed. Private? My summons need combat levels before I stand near B-rank dragons. Beginners cannot reserve dungeons alone. Then I will buy someone else's reservation. The raid party from yesterday had one booked that afternoon. I walked over to them. The leader crossed his arms. Changed your mind about joining us again? No, I want your gate. He stared at me. For what? To clear it. With those toys? 4 small heads appeared above the edge of my bag. The goblin scout grinned. The skeleton archer's jaw clicked. The baby ogre waved. The stone lizard looked personally offended by the word toys. The party laughed. I said 1 platinum coin on the table between us. The laughter stopped so cleanly I could hear the guild clock turn. The leader picked up the coin, bit it, then looked at the clerk. She nodded. Real. You had 5 gold this morning, he said. I trade well. For 1 dungeon window? For privacy. He closed his fist around the platinum. You sign in as our delayed 5th member. We open the gate, withdraw, and claim you insisted on scouting. If you get trapped, we never made this arrangement. If I clear it, then I forget I laughed. That sounds expensive for you. He took the coin anyway. The same guild members who had laughed at my 1-item bag watched me purchase an entire dungeon session. They did not respect me yet, but mockery had turned into caution. That was enough. The Dragon Root quest remained stamped in my name. Departure waited for the morning. First, I had to prove that 4 tiny monsters could replace a party. The private dungeon was called Iron Root Quarry. It looked nothing like the cave from the first raid. A stone gate opened into an abandoned mining complex where enormous roots had split the floors and shallow water ran through rusted rail channels. Broken carts hung from chains above a central pit. Old mana lamps flickered on and off as if the dungeon itself was breathing. The former raid party opened the gate, watched me step through, and withdrew outside. One of them called after me. Return charm is on your belt. Try not to waste our coin by lasting only 5 minutes. The gate sealed behind me. I released all 4 summons. The goblin scout bounced on its toes. The skeleton archer held a bow almost as tall as its body. The baby ogre rolled its shoulders like it had been waiting all night to hit something. The stone lizard lowered itself against the wet ground. I pointed down the first passage. Scout finds the route. Archer stays behind me. Ogre holds the lane. Lizard controls the floor. They all moved at once. That was the first problem. The goblin sprinted too far ahead. The baby ogre followed because it thought forward meant attack. The skeleton lost line of sight around the corner. The stone lizard braced in the exact place the rest of us needed to retreat through. 3 iron mining crawlers dropped from the ceiling between us. One swung a hooked arm at the goblin. Another rolled toward the ogre. The third blocked my path to both. I could not shout 4 corrections fast enough, so I stopped trying. Basic mana circulation tightened around my legs. I stepped inside the nearest crawler's swing and looked for the pale seam weak-line cut had shown me during training. There, one cracked joint beneath the hook arm. I cut through it. The arm dropped, but the construct kept moving. The stone lizard shifted at last and caught its wheel against a raised strip of rock. The crawler tilted. The skeleton found its angle and put an arrow into the exposed mana lens. The baby ogre recovered, grabbed the second construct by both sides, and held it long enough for the goblin to strike the cable behind its neck. We cleared the first group, badly. The goblin had a dented shoulder plate. The skeleton had lost 3 arrows. The ogre was standing in water up to its knees looking pleased with itself. The stone lizard remained exactly where I had first told it to brace. Spoken commands were too slow. I did not need them big yet. I needed them useful. The quarry gave each one a lesson. The first was a trap corridor. Old pressure plates lined the floor. Some dropped iron cages. Others released stone darts from the walls. The goblin scout rushed forward, triggered the first plate, and vanished under a cage. It stared at me through the bars. I stared back. That was the opposite of scouting. It looked offended. I cut the weakened block and freed it. The second time, it moved slowly. It tapped stones with the end of a broken arrow. It marked safe plates with chalk for my pack. When it found a narrow side tunnel bypassing half the traps, a soft pulse moved through our bond. Goblin Scout reached level 3. Skill learned, danger ping. The goblin pointed at a ceiling plate before it moved. Progress. The next chamber rose 3 levels around us. Nana-powered sentries stood on balconies with crystal bolts loaded into metal bows. The skeleton archer fired too quickly and missed. The sentries did not. I used clearing step before I had officially unlocked it, though at that point it was only instinct and mana. I crossed behind a pillar, while the stone lizard dragged the ogre into cover. Do not shoot the bodies, I told the skeleton. Shoot what makes them bodies. The goblin marked the glowing nodes. The skeleton waited. 1 breath. 2. Then it struck the first node. The sentry folded. Second arrow. Second node. By the final balcony, the skeleton no longer needed my finger to show it where to aim. Skeleton archer reached level 4. Skill improved. Mana node sight. The minecart lane belonged to the baby ogre. A stone ram construct barreled down the tracks toward us, pushing broken carts ahead of it. The ogre ran forward to meet it. The first impact sent the little beast rolling backward 3 times. It stood up, shook itself, and charged again. I caught the strap across its chest. Not charge, hold. It looked at the machine, then at its own hands. The stone lizard dug its claws into the rail bed and raised a ridge behind the ogre's heels. I pushed mana through the bond the way I had pushed it through my legs. The ogre planted both feet. The ram hit. This time, the ogre moved only half a step. The skeleton struck a wheel pin. The goblin released the brake chain on an empty cart above us. The cart smashed into the construct's side and turned it across the rail. Baby ogre reached level 4. Skill learned. Lane holder. It raised both fists and roared in a voice far too deep for its size. The flooded platform belonged to the stone lizard. Thin-legged quarry beasts moved through ankle-deep water faster than any of us could turn. Their feet spread across the surface tension. Every time the goblin chased one, it slipped. Every time the ogre swung, the creatures were somewhere else. The stone lizard lowered its chin. The ground changed. Small ridges rose beneath the water, not high enough to see, but high enough to break the creature's rhythm. One stumbled. The skeleton hit it. A second tried to turn and found the water suddenly pulling around its feet. The ogre blocked the lane. I moved through with weak line cut, striking only the bright seams my skill revealed. Stone lizard reached level 5. Skill learned. Terrain grip. The EXP crossed the bond and struck all of us at once. I reached level 6. The goblin reached level 4. The skeleton reached level 5. The ogre reached level 5. 3 summons. Level 5. The locked skill opened. Formation link unlocked. Shared functions available. Directional awareness. Silent command pulse. Target priority. Limited sensory overlap. The dungeon hit me all at once. The goblin's view was low and fast. The skeleton saw mana as faint blue pressure. The ogre felt weight through the floor. The lizard knew every stable patch of stone within several body lengths. I staggered and grabbed the wall. 4 sets of senses were not a gift if I let them become noise, so I treated them like a strategy map. I did not need to see everything. I needed markers. Danger, target, hold, move. I narrowed the link until each summon became one clean stream of useful information. The next enemy group was waiting in formation. An armored quarry guardian blocked the center lane. 2 crystal casters stood behind it. Fast cutters moved along the side rails. A real party, just not a good one. The goblin's danger ping marked the flankers before they moved. The stone lizard shifted the wet floor beneath the guardian's left foot. The ogre received one silent command. Hold. It met the guardian and stopped it in the narrow lane. The skeleton's mana node sight found the first caster's focus crystal. One arrow broke the spell before it formed. The goblin crossed behind the second caster and cut the stabilizing cord on its back. The guardian tilted as the ground gave way. My new movement skill completed itself. Skill unlocked. Clearing step. Defeating or contributing to a dungeon creature grants one short burst of movement. Chain ends on a miss, delay, or superior rank resistance. I used the first defeated flanker as the beginning. One step carried me across the lane. Weak line cut severed the second creature's exposed knee seam. The chain refreshed. Another step. The skeleton broke the guardian's shoulder node. Another step. I passed under its arm and placed the aura blade against the cracked core housing. The guardian stopped. The whole fight lasted less than 10 seconds. My summons looked at me. I looked at them. I looked at them. That was the first moment we were not a boy with 4 pets. We were a formation. The boss waited at the bottom of the central quarry pit. The quarry warden was built from ironroot wood and mining stone, twice the height of Dachi's minotaur and heavy enough that each movement shook dust from the walls. Chains ran from its shoulders to old counterweights. A furnace-like core glowed inside its chest behind 3 layers of armor. The baby ogre could not hold it directly. The aura blade could not reach the core while the armor remained closed. That was fine. The room was full of machinery. Machinery was just terrain with instructions. Through formation link, the goblin found the chain controls behind the left wall. The skeleton saw the locking pins above the warden's shoulders. The stone lizard mapped a cracked section of floor beneath the eastern counterweight. The ogre felt the exact rhythm of the boss's steps. I gave 4 silent commands. The goblin climbed. The skeleton aimed. The lizard moved the ground. The ogre waited. The warden charged. The baby ogre did not try to stop all of it. He caught one arm and turned the charge half a degree. That was enough. The boss stepped onto the cracked floor. The lizard dropped it. One leg sank to the knee. The goblin released the first counterweight. The skeleton broke the locking pin. A slab of ironroot crashed into the warden's plated shoulder and forced the armor open. The furnace core flared. Weak line cut showed me one bright line running from the chest to the neck. Too far. 3 creatures fell in the earlier chamber behind us when the warden's shockwave broke their damaged housings. Clearing step registered the contributions at once. 3 charges. I crossed the pit in bursts. First step to the rail. Second to the broken counterweight. Third onto the boss's lowered arm. The warden turned its head. I drove the aura blade through the bright mana line. The core light snapped out. The entire body settled into the quarry floor. I record confirmed. Ironroot quarry complete. Solo party classification detected. The harvest filled half the chamber. Perfect harvest released reinforced mana plates, a high-grade quarry core, an aura step fragment, crystallized root fiber, coins, tools, and one clear stone shaped like a small stable door. Living stable crystal detected. Compatible with storage vessel. Absorb? Yes. The crystal dissolved into the bag. The little leather pouch did not look any larger. Inside, space opened like a building unfolding in darkness. Storage stage 3 unlocked. Capacity increased. 20 small objects, 5 medium objects, 1 large object. Bonded creature stable unlocked. Upgrade speed increased. The 4 summons vanished into a space made for them instead of being compressed between coins and potions. I could feel the stable through the bond. Dry ground, training lanes, mana warmth. Enough room for the ogre to grow without using my entire inventory. The final EXP settled. Tommy reached level 11. Goblin Scout reached level 8. Skeleton Archer reached level 8. Baby Ogre reached level 7. Stone Lizard reached level 8. They were still small compared to normal adult monsters. They were no longer toys. When the gate reopened, the previous raid party was sitting outside playing cards. The leader checked the time. That was quick, he said. Return charm fail? I walked past him carrying the warden's clear mark. The gate crystal changed from active red to completed gold. Nobody said anything. The clerk scanned the record twice. Solo party clear, she whispered. The leader slowly folded his cards. You cleared Ironroot Quarry with those 4? The baby ogre leaned out of the stable and flexed both arms. The stone lizard pushed its face beside it. The goblin stole one of the leader's cards and disappeared back inside. I handed the card back. 5, I said. What? You forgot the porter. The kingdom spy stood across the road pretending to examine a saddle. This time, his hand shook when he wrote the clear time. I sold only the ordinary-looking loot. Rare plates, stable fibers, and aura fragments stayed with me. The appraiser tried to promote my card before I left. He placed the Ironroot clear mark beside my old registration and frowned at the words provisional porter. Regulation says a solo clear qualifies you for field rank. The clerk beside him looked at my public class. Regulation also assumes the person has measurable mana. I do now. They brought the same crystal that had stayed dark on day 2. This time, when I put my palm against it, a thin blue light climbed 1/4 of the way up the glass. The guild hall went quiet for a different reason. Mana output detected. Current capacity, E rank, growth pattern, recently awakened. The clerk stared at the results. You had nothing yesterday. I learned. You cannot learn mana in one night. That sounds like crown information. The appraiser coughed before the conversation became expensive. He changed my card. Adventurer rank, D, registered specialty, harvest auxiliary. Combat assessment, incomplete. It was another wrong box, but this one opened better doors. A D rank card let me purchase field restraints, monster feed, and independent quest insurance. It also meant nobody could legally assign me porter wages again without my agreement. The original raid leader watched the new rank burn into the card. Yesterday, you carried our bags. Yesterday, you had a dungeon reservation. He looked at the platinum coin in his hand like he had only just realized which one of us had purchased whom. The solo clear created a new problem immediately. 4 growing summons ate more than 4 tiny ones. The baby ogre had already consumed a full basket of root cakes. The stone lizard needed mineral salt. The goblin wanted anything sweet enough to steal twice. The skeleton did not eat, but its mana string weakened without refined core dust. Power needed maintenance. That was good. A system without costs becomes noise. A system with costs becomes an economy. I bought the cheapest mixed monster feed the guild stocked. It came in a coarse sack and smelled like somebody had swept 3 barns into one bag. The merchant laughed when I asked whether it was suitable for legendary bloodlines. It is barely suitable for goats. I placed the whole sack into storage. Stage 3 accepted it as one medium object. The timer estimated 4 hours. While it upgraded, the guild appraiser offered to buy the clear quarry core. 8 gold. No. 10. No. 12, and I stop asking where the blade came from. You are going to stop asking anyway. He smiled without denying it. I kept the core. High-grade materials were not wealth until I needed to sell them. Before that, they were options. The feed completed shortly before departure. Mixed stable feed became adaptive growth ration. Effect converts into the correct nutritional and mana profile for any bonded storage summon. Effect improves EXP assimilation. Limit cannot replace combat experience or force an evolution. The ugly sack had become a small silver tin containing colored pellets. Green for the goblin, white for the skeleton's core flame, brown for the ogre, gray-blue for the lizard. The 4 summons gathered around it with more discipline than they had shown during their first training session. The goblin still tried to steal the brown pellet. The baby ogre caught its wrist. Formation had limits. I gave each creature its ration and felt their unstable post-dungeon growth settle into something usable. The guild saw a lucky porter who had bought a rank with 1 abnormal clear. The spy saw a prophecy class acquiring mana, legal access, and a self-sustaining monster roster. I saw what strategy games call the point where the opening ends. The economy was running. The army could feed itself. Now I needed to take bolts somewhere the crown had already made dangerous. Then I returned to the quest counter and placed my card beside the red-edged request. Hearthglen, I said. I am ready. The clerk stamped the contract. You understand this is not a dragon hunt. What is it? A protection mission. She looked toward the mountains beyond the village. You are being sent to keep Hearthglen alive when the dragons wake. Hearthglen sat beneath a ridge full of warm mineral springs and sleeping dragons. That sounded worse than it was. The guild handler explained it over a map before we left. Round belly ember drakes, he said, tapping a chain of red circles across the mountain. B rank. Heavy bodies, short wings. They can glide from a ridge, but they are terrible at staying in the air. Mostly they want heat, roots, livestock feed, and somewhere quiet to sleep. One of the temporary escorts beside me snorted. They look stupid until one sits on a barn. The handler ignored him. The village lies between their winter hollows and the upper springs. Every year, the drakes wake, cross the lower fields, soak in the mineral pools, and move toward the northern caverns. Usually they do not care about people. Usually? I asked. They care if you block the path. They care if you make loud mana near their young. They care if you touch an egg. So this is not a clearing mission. No, you move livestock. Mark the crossing lanes. Reinforce roofs. Redirect anything confused toward the ridge. If one attacks, you subdue it and move it. Do not finish it unless there is no other choice. Adults smell their own bloodline from miles away. The red quest sheet called the assignment S-ranked because the consequences of one mistake were S-rank, not because every dragon was. That distinction mattered. A weak strategist sees the enemy rank. A useful one sees what makes the situation collapse. Then the handler pointed to a blue square on the village map. Royal Training Camp. My stomach tightened. The students are already there? Arrived yesterday. Were they taught the migration lanes? Royal instructors handle royal instruction. Were they told the springs are nesting territory? The handler rolled the map closed. Ask the crown. That was the second answer I had received. That meant nobody wanted to say the real one. I traveled with 6 temporary guild members, including 2 from the first raid. They no longer called me useless. They also did not call me by name unless they wanted something. That was progress in its own way. The road climbed through black stone and pale grass. Old landing scars marked the trees. Round footprints pressed deep into dried mud, each one wider than a wagon wheel. We passed rocks polished smooth where dragon bellies had scraped across them for generations. My formation link stretched farther than before. The goblin scout moved along the roadside, marking recent tracks. The skeleton archer watched the ridgeline. The baby ogre carried a pack almost its own size and looked proud to be useful. The stone lizard tested the ground near every warm air vent. Fresh signs gathered as we approached Hearthglen. Broken brush, warm claw marks, a thin piece of shell near a mineral run, and human boot prints crossing directly through all of them. During the trip, I placed a cheap cooling charm into the bag. The guild used those charms in summer storage rooms. The original was a blue ceramic disc that could keep one great cold for an hour. By the time the village roofs appeared, the upgrade timer reached completion. I pulled out a silver-white lantern with a heart-shaped crystal suspended inside. Upgrade complete. Basic cooling charm became Winterheart Beacon. Effect creates a temporary path of calming cold. Fire-aligned creatures may follow the field toward thermal relief. Range increases with supplied mana. That was not a weapon. It was better. You could only defeat one dragon at a time with a blade. A path could move all of them. Hearthglen looked poorer than the first village. The houses were stone at the bottom and patched wood above. Half the roofs carried old scorch marks. Fences leaned outward from previous impacts. People had stacked water barrels beside every building, not because they expected fire exactly, but because anything involving dragons eventually needed water. The royal camp across the field looked like a different country. White tents, clean banners, new timber platforms, crates of food and potion glass stacked under guards. The crown had spent more on 3 days of student comfort than Hearthglen had spent repairing itself in 10 years. The villagers saw my old world school clothes beneath the guild cloak and went stiff. One man with a hammer looked at my porter card. Another summoned hero? Banished one. That changed his expression, though I could not tell whether it improved it. I asked where the dragons usually crossed. He showed me. I asked which roofs failed first. He showed me those too. I asked where the young drake stopped when frightened. That was when the villagers began answering before I finished the questions. We moved livestock from the eastern pens. We painted white mineral lines across the safe migration path. The stone lizard packed loose ground beneath 2 barns. The baby ogre helped lift support beams while pretending not to enjoy the attention from village children. The guild escort watched me work. You ask more questions than most heroes, one said. Most heroes were not given 7 days to prove they deserve food. He laughed once. Then a fire spell exploded across the field. The sound rolled off the ridge. A flock of ash birds lifted from the trees. My goblin scout froze and pointed toward the royal camp. Another spell followed. This one missed its target and scorched a long black mark across the warm stone above the springs. Dachi's minotaur roared. The answer came from inside the mountain. Low, sleepy. I felt it through the stone lizard's feet. The dragons were not awake yet. They had started listening. I walked toward the ridge markers with the village elder. Half of them were gone. The old posts that once warned travelers away from nesting hollows had been pulled from the ground and stacked beside a royal supply wagon. Why? I asked. A royal worker shrugged. They blocked the training field. They marked dragon dens. We were told this is controlled beginner terrain. Fresh claw lines ran across the rock behind him. Your control is missing several facts. He touched the sword at his side. Royal orders outranked village superstition. The village elder's face closed. The guild mission lead pulled me back before the conversation became useful in a different way. We warn them, he said quietly. Orders are orders. That sentence was becoming the kingdom's favorite way to place consequences in someone else's hands. Day 4 was almost over. I had money. I had an EXP engine. I still did not have a way home. But the more the crown lied about power, the more certain I became that the summoning system and the road back came from the same hidden place. If I wanted the third answer, I would have to survive long enough to force it out of them. Across the ridge the next morning, the rest of my class thought they were finally becoming strong. Their spells hit targets now, mostly. Fire users could produce flames larger than their hands, though the edges scattered. Weapon users could reinforce a strike, then spent the next minute breathing like they had run a race. Beast users managed simple commands, as long as their beasts already wanted to do the same thing. Supports restored mana in small amounts, then needed more recovery than the people they helped. 5 days in, they were better than students. They were not ready for dragons. Daki stood in the center of the royal training yard with his minotaur behind him. Charge the 3 center targets, he ordered. The beast lowered its horns. Black mana rolled over its shoulders. It hit the first target, the second target, the third target, and then kept going. Stop. The minotaur broke through the boundary fence and buried one horn in a supply cart. The class cheered. They saw the power. The instructor saw the missing control. Daki walked over like he had intended every part of it. Beast Tyrant, he said. It knows not to waste momentum. The Minotaur yanked its horn free and shoved him aside with one hand. Maki covered a smile. Her own skill had improved too. A restrained training beast stood inside a red circle while she extended one hand. Dark rose light moved from the creature into her body. Its legs weakened. Her posture straightened. The exhaustion left her face. Then she touched Dashi's shoulder and transferred a thin stream of energy into him. He brightened slightly. Namas. She remained almost fully restored. Excellent support conversion, an instructor said. Another student watched the training creature sway. She kept most of it. Maki heard and smiled sweetly. Control takes practice. Her eyes moved past Dachi, toward a royal knight whose aura had just split a stone pillar. Dachi followed her gaze. His Minotaur followed Dashi's anger and pawed the ground. Above the camp, the king stepped into a private command tent. A crystal communicator waited on a black stand. He activated it. Static moved through the room like breath behind a wall. "These kids are not ready yet," the king said. "We need more time." The answer came from the crystal in a voice too deep to belong to the small light inside it. "You know he waits for no one." The king's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "The convergence is still 2 days away. The measure begins when the 7th sun sets. Your walls stand because the pact stands." The light went dark. The king stayed still for several seconds. Then he called the instructors in. "Distribute the royal mana accelerants." The senior instructor went pale. "Your Majesty, their channels have not adapted. Accelerants increase available mana before the body learns to carry it. We could see spell expansion, aura ruptures, emotional instability, beast resonance. Control can be taught after output reaches the required level." The instructor looked at him. Not strength, not survival, output. That was the word the king cared about. Blue potion bottles appeared on every student's table before noon. The liquid inside looked almost identical to the basic mana potions I had upgraded. Almost. Mine had become an origin mana elixir that rebuilt the body to hold what it gave. Theirs forced mana into channels that were not ready. Dachi drank first. Power surged through him so fast the air around his arms cracked. He laughed. His Minotaur's eyes turned red-black, and the beast grew half a head taller as its own mana answered the spike. A mage threw a fire sphere and accidentally produced a wall. A fighter reinforced his sword and split the practice platform beneath his feet. Maki's lifesteal range expanded far enough to drain 3 targets at once. The red aura around her became almost beautiful. The class cheered. For the first time, they felt like the heroes the summoning hall promised. Nobody told them power that arrived faster than control was not theirs yet. The instructors moved training toward the hot ridge. Stronger targets waited there. More danger meant more output. Dachi led because he refused to walk behind anyone. His Minotaur stomped through one of the white migration lines we had painted and scattered the mineral powder into the wind. A fire mage aimed at a stone practice beast near the springs. Her spell doubled in size after she released it. The blast missed. It struck the mouth of a warm cavern. Stone collapsed inward. Dachi's Minotaur roared at the echo. The entire ridge answered. Ground moved beneath the village. Vast steam burst from 3 mineral vents. A round orange head pushed through the broken cavern mouth, eyes half closed, cheeks swollen from months of sleep. The first dragon looked almost harmless. Then it opened its wings, slid down the ridge like a falling boulder, and flattened a royal watchtower without slowing. More shapes moved behind it. The students raised their weapons. The villagers ran for the marked shelters. Through a viewing crystal, the king watched the ridge wake. The senior instructor reached for the evacuation signal. The king stopped him. "Let them fight. They are unstable. Then pressure will stabilize them, or break them." He did not say which outcome he expected. The first B-rank Drake slid toward Hearthglen. Before anyone explained why it was angry, Dashi pointed at it. "Beast Tyrant, charge." His Minotaur lowered its horns and ran directly into the migration path. The village bells started before the Minotaur reached the dragon. 1 bell meant fire, 2 meant a beast breach. Hearthglen rang every bell it had. I was on the western edge, helping the baby ogre hold a roof brace when formation link filled with danger marks. The goblin scout was already on a chimney. Through its eyes, I saw 3 round shapes sliding down the ridge, not flying. Sliding. The first ember drake spread its wings just enough to steer its weight. The second bounced off a stone terrace and rolled through a fence. The third came down backward, corrected itself with one furious flap, and landed on a hay wagon so completely that only the wheels remained visible. They looked clumsy. They were still B-rank dragons. A bad landing from one could erase a house. "East Lane," the mission lead shouted. "Move the villagers." The royal students did the opposite. They formed a loose attack line across the migration route. Someone yelled, "Dragons," as if naming them made panic useful. The fire mage threw a spear larger than anything she had produced the day before. The potion doubled it after release. The spell passed over the target, struck the hillside behind it, and showered hot stone across the path. The dragon opened its mouth and answered with a burst of ember wind. Students scattered. Dachi did not. He pointed at the largest drake. Beast Tyrant, crush it. The Minotaur wanted that command. That was the problem. It charged before Dachi finished speaking. The dragon was not facing the village. It was trying to turn toward the upper springs. The Minotaur struck it from the side and knocked it off the marked lane. The drake rolled through a stone wall and landed in the center street. People screamed. Daki lifted both hands like the collision had proved something. See, it cannot stand against me. The dragon stood. Its eyes went from sleepy to furious. Dachi's Minotaur looked pleased. Neither of them cared that a family was trapped behind the broken wall. Maki moved through the students surrounded by red light. One boy had burned both hands controlling an oversized spell. Another had collapsed from mana exhaustion. Maki passed them and went straight to Dachi. She placed one palm against a wounded training beast caught under a fence. Rose-colored energy streamed from it into her. Then she touched Dachi's back. His aura steadied. The training beast stopped struggling. The boy with the burned hands stared at her. I need help. Maki did not look at him. Daki is holding the front. He was not holding anything. His beast was turning one panicked dragon into a battle because it enjoyed being challenged. I released the 4 summons from the stable. They landed around me, larger than they had been in the quarry, but still small beside the dragons. The guild members nearest me hesitated. Your plan? The mission lead asked. Stop treating this like a hunt. I activated formation link. The village became a map. The goblin scout marked moving heat, blocked alleys, trapped people, and the direction every dragon kept trying to turn. Northwest, toward the springs, exactly as the guild had explained. They are not attacking the village, I said. They are trying to cross it. A royal instructor snapped. They have already destroyed property. Because you built a camp in their road and started throwing mana at their beds. Another dragon slid into the eastern fields. Students raised their spells. Do not fire, I said. Daki laughed from across the street. Listen to him. The porter thinks he commands heroes now. I sent one silent pulse through formation link. The goblin scout vanished onto the roofs. It moved faster than any student in the street, dropping chalk markers at clear turns and banging shutters where people still hid. It found the family behind the broken wall and marked a side window before the dragon could turn. The skeleton archer fired. Its arrow cut the trapped window latch. The baby ogre reached the house, braced both hands beneath a sinking beam, and held it while the family crawled out. It was 1/4 the Minotaur's height. It obeyed before I finished thinking the command. The stone lizard planted itself at the intersection. The drake came sliding toward 3 houses, belly low, claws tearing lines through the road. Terrain grips spread to the ground. The lizard raised a ridge no higher than my knee along one side of the street and softened the opposite edge. The dragon's front foot caught. Its weight shifted. Instead of crashing into the houses, it turned through the open livestock yard. Villagers on the roofs stared at the tiny armored lizard like it had moved a river. That was what control looked like. Not bigger force. Correct direction. The largest drake drew breath in the center street. Orange light gathered behind its teeth. The royal students froze. The skeleton archer's mana node sight marked the flare beneath its jaw. One arrow struck a hanging training rope above the dragon. The heavy practice net dropped across its horns. Drake jerked its head. The breath burst went upward and burned empty air. Hearing step activated as 2 small ridge crawlers fled the disturbed ground and crossed my path. The goblin tripped the first. I cut its weak line. 1 step. The skeleton struck the second. Another step. I crossed the street before the dragon pulled free of the net. Black line cut showed pale fractures where the Minotaur's charge had damaged one scale seam. I did not try to cut the dragon down. I cut the royal restraint collar tangled around its neck. The instructors had apparently fitted tracking bands onto the sleeping drakes before training. The broken device had been shocking it every time it turned toward the springs. The collar fell. The dragon stopped fighting the net for half a breath. That was enough. I placed the Winterheart beacon in the road and fed it mana. Cold spread outward in a silver line, not freezing, calming. A path of cool air moved from the center street through the western gate and toward the mineral springs beyond the village. The largest drake lifted its head. Its nostrils widened. The anger in its eyes shifted toward confusion. Then it took 1 step after the cold. Dachi shouted, "It is running, finish it." His Minotaur charged again. I sent 4 pulses through formation link. The goblin marked the angle. The lizard raised stone under the Minotaur's left foot. The skeleton cut the loose strap on its shoulder armor. The baby ogre braced against a market pillar before the collision reached it. The Minotaur stumbled sideways, not enough to drop it, enough to miss the dragon. It hit an empty trough and split it in half. Dachi's face twisted. "Get up, attack the dragon." The Minotaur looked at the drake following the Winterheart path, then at my formation, then at Dachi. It did not move. Attack. The beast struck the ground with 1 fist and roared at him. The sound threw dust off the roofs. Dachi stepped back. For the first time, everybody saw the truth. He did not control the Minotaur. He negotiated with its ego and called the moments it agreed, obedience. I did not have time to enjoy that. A second dragon had reached the student line. The royal potion surge began to collapse. One mage lost her spell halfway through forming it. A weapon user's reinforced legs failed under him. Maki's red aura flickered as the nearby training creatures ran out of vitality she could take. The dragon lowered its head and charged the exhausted class. The students who had laughed in the summoning hall stood in a cluster with no formation and nowhere to go. I could have let the royal instructors solve it. They were too far away. I could have let Dashi prove Beast Tyrant meant something. His Minotaur was still refusing him. So I used the template the first raid had taught me. Scout. Control, front line, range. The goblin crossed the dragon's sight and drew its head 2 degrees left. The stone lizard softened the road under its leading foot. The baby ogre planted in front of the students. It was not strong enough to stop a B-rank dragon. It did not need to stop it forever. The impact pushed the ogre backward, boots carving trenches through the road. It held for 1 second, then 2, long enough. The skeleton's arrow struck the damaged scale beneath the dragon's foreleg. Weak line cut brightened the same seam. Clearing step carried me across the final distance. I hit the line with the flat of the aura blade and released mana through the crack. The dragon's front leg folded. Its charge turned into a slide. The stone lizard raised the edge of the street and guided the whole body away from the students. The drake stopped beside the Winterheart path, stunned but breathing steadily. The beacon pulled at it. The dragon stood and followed the cold. One by one, the others did the same. Goblin ran ahead, marking the route. The lizard shaped the turns. The ogre held broken gates open. The skeleton cut every rope, sign, and damaged barrier blocking the lane. The royal students watched 4 creatures they had laughed at move like a trained unit. The last dragon hesitated near the village well. Daki's Minotaur stepped into its path without being ordered. The 2 beasts stared at each other. Daki grinned like control had returned. Then the Minotaur moved aside. The dragon followed my beacon. The silence after that was louder than the battle. Villagers came out of shelters. A woman grabbed my hands and thanked me before I knew which house had been hers. Children surrounded the baby ogre. The stone lizard received 3 bowls of water and ignored all of them until someone added warm rocks. The goblin appeared with 6 stolen royal badges and had to be convinced to return 5. The skeleton stood beside me with its bow lowered. Royal instructors looked at my summons, then at Dachi's Minotaur, then away. Dachi recovered his voice. They were weak dragons. His Minotaur snorted. Someone laughed. Daki turned, but he could not tell who had done it. Maki approached while I checked the boy whose hands had been burned by his own spell. She had cleaned the dust from her face. Her voice returned to the soft one she used when she wanted to sound harmless. Tommy. I kept wrapping the boy's hands with upgraded salve. I was scared in the hall, she said. Everything happened so fast. Dachi had a beast. The king was watching. I did not know what would happen. You knew enough to choose. Her mouth tightened. We were together. When nobody important was looking. That is not fair. I finished the bandage and stood. No, it was accurate. She reached toward my sleeve. The goblin scout appeared on my shoulder and bared tiny teeth at her fingers. Maki stopped. I turned back to the villagers. That hurt her more than shouting would have. Dachi had taken her because he thought she was a prize. She had chosen him because she thought he was the winner. Neither of them understood what happened when the room stopped agreeing. The goblin tugged my ear and pointed toward the ridge. One last danger mark pulsed through formation link. Not danger exactly. Weak life. I followed it into a collapsed warm hollow above the springs. Broken shell pieces lay beneath a stone ledge. Most were old. One small egg remained wedged between roots, cracked along the side and cold compared to the surrounding ground. A round adult drake stood above it. One wing dragged slightly from the panic below. The guild escorts raised weapons. I lowered mine. The dragon looked at the Winterheart beacon in my hand, then at the migration path where the others had disappeared. It pushed the egg toward me with its nose. The shell rolled once and stopped against my boot. Public appraisal appeared for my adventurer card. Damaged dragon egg. Hatch probability near 0. Rank unreadable. Trade value negligible. The bag gave a different answer. Ancient bloodline detected. Maximum evolution route available. Estimated upgrade time 36 hours. The adult dragon waited. It was not giving me a treasure because it trusted humans. It was giving the egg to the one person who had not treated its whole family like targets. I placed the egg into the bag. Upgrade initiated. Time remaining 35 hours, 59 minutes. The dragon watched the pouch close. Then it turned and followed the others toward the springs. By sunset, the crown had received 3 reports. Tommy saved Hearthglen. Tommy commanded 4 named core beasts in formation. Tommy acquired a dragon egg. The king read each line twice. The royal advisor beside him whispered, "The Ark Shepherd is collecting bloodlines." The king looked toward the arena being prepared for day 7. "Then we cannot allow him to arrive with the students already believing him." 7-day plan progress. Bankroll secured. EXP engine secured. Route home unknown. Time remaining 2 days. I had just proven the crown withheld information that could have saved an entire village. On day 6, I decided to tell the class directly. I learned that proof and belief were not the same thing. The royal instructors rewrote the dragon attack before the dust settled. By the time the students reached their camp, the official version was already moving from tent to tent. Unexpected field test. Controlled territorial response. Royal training successfully contained the situation with civilian assistance. Civilian assistance meant me, 4 summoned monsters, 1 village guild, and every local who had spent the morning moving people out of the crown's mistake. Language was another kind of storage. Put failure inside the right words long enough and somebody would pull out a victory. I found the empty potion vial beside the damaged training fence. Blue glass. Royal seal. A thin red residue around the neck. The label read exactly what the instructors had told the students. Royal Mana Accelerator. Temporary mana increase. I held it near the bag. Hidden structure detected. Incomplete siphon primer. Effect: forces external mana through unadapted channels. Effect: creates unstable excess output. Secondary effect: leaves the user compatible with large-scale mana extraction. I read the last line twice. Potion had not simply made them stronger badly, it had prepared them to be emptied. I placed the vial inside the bag. Because it was nearly empty, the upgrade took less than an hour. When I removed it, the blue glass had become clear gold and the liquid inside had thickened into one perfect drop. Upgrade complete. Incomplete siphon primer became balanced mana foundation elixir. Effect: expands mana capacity only after adapting the user's channels. No extraction compatibility. Stable growth formula. The safe version existed. The crown had chosen the one that damaged control and made later harvesting easier. That was no longer incompetence. It was design. I asked the royal instructor for 10 minutes with the class before they returned to the capital. He refused. Students gathered anyway. Some came because I had saved them. Some came because Dachi told them not to. Maki stood beside him with her arms folded. Her smile was calm again. Dachi's cheek had stopped being red from my slap days ago, but every time his minotaur looked toward my summons, the old humiliation returned to his face. I did not start with accusations, I started with facts. The crown treated awakening like a final verdict, I said. It is not. Mana grows through circulation. Levels grow through combat. Skills can be learned. The kingdom knew that before we arrived. Student near the back nodded slowly. He had been the one who compared the system to a video game. I continued. They delayed teaching us basic circulation. They placed your camp beside a known dragon route. They removed warning markers. They gave you potions that force more mana into your body than your channels can control. I held up the blue vial and the gold one. This is what they gave you. This is what the same formula becomes when it is made stable. One girl looked at the burns along her wrist. Why would they give us the bad one? That is what I am trying to find out. Dachi laughed. Not because the answer was funny, because he needed everyone else to hear confidence before they heard doubt. You got thrown out, he said. You survived, found some tricks, and now you need everyone to believe being thrown out made you better than us. That is not what I said. It is what you mean. He pointed at the 4 summons. Those things came from monster cores. Nobody knows what you turned yourself into outside the barrier. Now the crown that fed us, trained us, and protected us is suddenly evil because they did not recognize your bag? That argument worked because it was easier than mine. Believing me meant the roof over their heads belonged to people using them. Believing Dachi meant they only needed to train harder. Maki stepped forward. Tommy, you have been through a lot, she said softly. Maybe you are scared. Maybe you are seeing patterns because you expect everyone to betray you. She looked around the group. The kingdom gave us food, teachers, safety, a place in this world. We cannot turn against them because one potion made us dizzy. Several students relaxed when she said it. Not because she proved anything, because she gave them permission not to choose. A quiet boy near the side said, "But Tommy saved us." Nobody answered him. Dachi's eyes hardened. The royal instructor entered the circle with guards behind him. "What is that vial?" "Your potion," I said. Corrected. He held out his hand. "Turn it over." "No. Royal alchemy cannot be verified by an unregistered ability. Then let an independent guild verify it. IDS. He took one step closer. Storage transformation is not recognized as evidence. That was when I knew he believed me. People do not rush to disqualify evidence they think is harmless. The guards collected every empty vial they could find. One student tried to hide hers. A guard took it anyway. I put the gold elixir back into my bag before they reached me. Dachi smiled like authority arriving had settled the argument. The quiet students did not. The hooded spy watched from the edge of the camp. His report reached the king before sunset. Subject is influencing the summoned group, he said through the crystal. He presented the accelerator as a siphon component. Several students hesitated. The king's voice became flat. Then he is no longer only an asset outside custody, he is an influence threat. A royal announcement came 1 hour later. All summoned students were ordered back to the capital for the 7th-day hero evaluation. The event would include a public battle royale. The winner would receive command status, elite royal resources, and priority access to the path home once the kingdom was secured. Path home. Those 2 words changed my decision. The safe move was to remain in Hearthglen. The villagers would hide me. The guild could delay a royal retrieval order. The crown would have to expose how much it feared a useless porter to drag me back by force. But the arena was connected to the summoning system. The potions were preparing mana for extraction. Now the king had admitted some kind of return route existed. I was going back. Not to prove I had value, not to win a title. I was going back because the answer to Objective 3 had finally shown itself. I spent the rest of Day 6 preparing for a trap everybody else called a competition. Formation link training came first. I stood in the village square while the force summons spread to opposite edges. The goblin moved through rooftops. The skeleton watched from the bell tower. The ogre trained beside the barns. The stone lizard followed underground water channels. I held all 4 streams at once without losing my own sight. Then I narrowed them. Threat, position, need, nothing else. We cleared 3 small monster pockets along the ridge before nightfall. I chose them for training value, not loot. The first pocket belonged to ashwolves that hunted in pairs. One showed itself while the second circled through brush. On our first exchange, the goblin scout marked the visible wolf and almost missed the real threat. I froze the formation, made it watch the tracks instead of the teeth, and sent it back through the route. The second time, it vanished between 2 chalk marks and appeared behind the hidden wolf before the attack began. Goblin Scout reached level 14. Skill evolved. Marked route. Effect: the scout can designate safe movement points for linked allies and move between nearby marks with reduced visibility. Now was not teleportation, it was better pathing performed so quickly the eye lost the middle. In the battle royale, it would let the goblin move through a crowd without treating every student as a target. The second pocket held rockback boars. They were smaller than the dragons but built around the same problem: weight, charge, and too much confidence in a straight line. The stone lizard shaped a shallow funnel. The baby ogre stood at the narrow end. First boar struck and pushed it 6 steps. The ogre wanted to chase after the miss. I sent one silent command: hold. It returned to the same place. The lizard raised a ridge behind its heels. On the second charge, the ogre caught the impact, turned its shoulders, and sent the boar sliding into soft ground instead of striking back wildly. Baby ogre reached level 15. Skill evolved. Impact brace. Effect: converts part of a frontal collision into stable footing for nearby linked allies. Stone lizard reached level 16. Skill evolved. Ridge wall. Effect: raises short defensive terrain along a marked formation link line. Big attacks no longer had to be stopped by a bigger attack. They could become structure for the rest of the team. The third pocket was a cluster of mana moths nesting around stone imps. The moths strengthened any spell passing through their dust, while the imps threw wheat bolts from behind rocks. Individually, none were dangerous. Together, every small spell grew on the way toward us. The skeleton archer watched the mana threads rather than the creatures. Its first arrow pinned one glowing thread to a tree. The amplified spell curved with it and struck empty ground. The second arrow cut a moth's connection to the group. The third broke the imp's focus stone. Skeleton archer reached level 15. Skill evolved. Spell pin. Effect: fixes a visible mana structure to a point for 1 moment, disrupting movement, growth, or combination. That skill would not overpower a stronger mage. It would make a stronger mage's timing belong to us for 1 second. The EXP siphon fed every bond, and the adaptive growth rations helped their bodies settle each gain instead of wasting it. I rose with them. Tommy reached level 18. Mana capacity increased. Formation link range increased. Clearing step threshold increased. I spent another hour deliberately feeding false information into the link. Bells rang from one side. Stones rolled from another. Villagers moved through the training field carrying flags while the summons maintained separate jobs. At first, every signal felt urgent. By the end, I could discard anything that did not threaten the objective. Route, weak point, person in danger, everything else became background. Then I used the bag on tools meant to keep the battle non-lethal. A cheap healing tonic became field recovery mist, enough to stabilize a group without refilling the unstable royal mana in one dangerous surge. Ordinary binding cable became oat steel restraint, which tightened against hostile mana but loosened when the restrained person stopped fighting. 3 thin shield plates became impact diffusion plates. Each could absorb 1 overwhelming strike by breaking in layers instead of sending the whole force into my body. The bag could make weapons. The more important discovery was that it could make mercy practical. I did not know exactly what the king planned for day 7. I knew the students might stand between me and the answer. These upgrades gave me ways to move them without treating them like creatures in a dungeon. Then I found an old cracked boundary stake in the village storehouse. It had once stabilized emergency barriers during dragon season, but the crystal inside had split years ago. The bag took most of the night to repair it. Upgrade complete. Cracked boundary stake became world anchor. Effect stabilizes local space. Effect prevents forced portal collapse for a limited duration. Effect can hold one realm boundary open if supplied with sufficient mana. That was the first tool I had found that spoke directly to a road between worlds. The dragon egg pulsed inside the bag. A tiny heartbeat moved through the bond space. Maximum bloodline reconstruction, 92%. Hatching condition, high density sovereign mana. Time alone would not finish it. Something powerful enough to feed a royal ritual might. At dawn, the innkeeper from the first village arrived with a repaired coat sent through the guild road. Hearthglen's villagers added food, gloves, and a small wooden token carved like a round dragon. You already proved you are useful, the village elder said, not to the crown. He looked toward the capital road. That sounds like the crown's problem. For the first time since we arrived in this world, someone valued me without asking what my class could do for them. That was dangerous in a different way. It gave this world something I did not want to abandon carelessly. Day 7 began with the same kingdom gate that had thrown me out. The guards were waiting. They recognized the school uniform beneath my repaired coat. They recognized the tiny bag. They recognized the face they had expected never to see again. One guard looked past me for an escort. There was none. You came back, he said. That was the sentence. The other guard glanced at the road behind me. What happened out there? I learned what the kingdom forgot to mention. They did not laugh. A scanner team met me inside the gate. The crystal passed blue light over my body and bag. Class, storage carrier. Level, 18. Registered combat skill, low. Registered beast contract, none. The last result drew murmurs. Dachi waited beyond the checkpoint in polished black armor. His minotaur stood behind him wearing a new royal harness and looking no happier about it. No beasts, Dachi said, so the village story was exaggerated. The stable space inside my bag shifted as 4 summons reacted to his voice. I kept them stored. You should trust the scanner, I said. It has been very accurate about me. He did not understand the joke. The capital arena had been rebuilt into 6 different battle zones. A central stone platform stood above a shallow water trench. Broken columns filled one side. A planted forest occupied another. Raised paths crossed a beast ring. Glowing circles covered the floor in every section. The crowd saw variety. I saw plumbing. Every bright line beneath the zones ran toward one sealed core under the central platform, the same red geometry as the residue in the potion vial. The evaluation circles were not measuring mana separately, they were collecting it. The whole class entered through different gates. Some looked at me with open hostility. Some would not meet my eyes. The quiet boy from Hearthglen gave me one small nod, then looked away before the guards noticed. The king rose above the arena. 7 days ago, he announced, one summoned student rejected the order of this hall and was given a chance to prove whether even a failed class could serve the crown. The crowd looked at me. The sentence is complete. He returned. A thin wave of applause moved through the lower seats. Not welcome. Surprise. Today, every summoned hero will prove usefulness. The Battle Royale will identify the hero commander, the winner will receive royal resources, authority over the summoned force, and priority access to the path home once our kingdom is secured. The words landed exactly where the king wanted. Home. Students straightened. Maki's eyes brightened. Dachi looked at the throne like it already belonged to him. I raised my voice. Why does every evaluation line feed the same core? The nearest spectators went quiet. The king did not look down at the floor, he looked at me. There is a more urgent matter, he said. The returned student has concealed a forbidden awakening. A royal mage projected images over the arena. My small summons emerging from cores. The dragon attack. The egg entering my bag. The old scriptures name a creature carrying power connected to demon territory, the king said. He hides bonds from lawful scans, converts monster remains into obedient servants, interferes with royal training, corrupts beast bloodlines, and has attempted to turn summoned heroes against the kingdom that protects them. The statement was built from truth with every reason removed. That made it stronger than a simple lie. Dachi pointed across the arena. I knew it. No, he had not. But confidence often arrived after the answer. The king lifted one hand. The evaluation condition is amended. Any student who binds Tommy and delivers the bag to the central platform will be named the winner. The arena erupted. And, the king added, that student will receive first claim on the return path. That turned hesitation into movement. Students who did not care about Dachi cared about home. Students who doubted the crown still feared losing the only door they knew. Maki stepped beside Dachi. The quiet doubters remained farther back, but they did not leave the field. I looked at the floor lines. The first unstable auras were already making them glow. You are powering something beneath us, I said. The potions made your mana easy to pull. The king needs this fight to exhaust you. Dachi drew his weapon, another excuse. A few students glanced down. The king dropped his hand. Begin. Spells formed across the arena. Weapon aura flared. Beasts roared. Every line under the floor brightened toward the center. The whole class moved toward me. I released the 4 summons, not because I saw my classmates as enemies, because I was the only person in the arena still trying to stop them without becoming one. The first wave thought numbers were a strategy. 12 students rushed the stone platform at once, weapon users in front, fire and wind behind, 2 capture specialists carrying silver bands meant to seal my bag. They expected me to retreat. I sent one command through formation link. Split. The stone lizard struck both front feet into the arena floor. A ridge rose between the weapon users and the mages, not high enough to hurt anyone, high enough to break sight and timing. The goblin scout disappeared into the broken column zone. 3 silver capture bands vanished from their owners' belts before the students realized it had moved. The skeleton archer fired 6 arrows. 1 pinned a sword sleeve to a wooden post. 1 broke a mage's focus charm. 2 struck the ground in front of running students and forced them to change direction. The last 2 cut the straps holding a net above the water trench. The baby ogre caught the net, waited until 4 attackers entered range, then dropped it over them and pushed the whole struggling bundle into shallow water. Nobody was seriously hurt. Everybody was stopped. I used clearing step through the openings. A reinforced spear came at my chest. Weak line cut showed the unstable mana seam along the shaft. I cut the reinforcement, not the wood. The aura vanished. I caught the spear and turned it sideways, sending the student rolling over his own momentum. A fire spell formed to my left. The skeleton marked the focus. I crossed 1 step and tapped the caster's wrist with the flat of the aura blade. The spell broke into harmless sparks. A capture specialist reached for the bag. The goblin scout appeared behind him wearing all 3 stolen bands like bracelets. It slapped one onto his wrist and linked it to a broken column. The first wave ended with 12 students tied, pinned, soaked, or staring at weapons that no longer carried mana. The audience had expected the returned porter to disappear beneath the crowd. Instead, his joke monsters had processed the attack like a veteran unit sorting cargo. A royal commentator spoke too quickly. Forbidden beast interference. Unregistered tricks have disrupted the opening exchange. The crowd did not sound convinced. One of the students in the net looked up at me. You could have cut my arm. I needed you able to notice what the floor is doing. He looked down. Red light moved beneath the water around his knees, flowing toward the central platform. The second wave came with an actual plan. Mages spread across the raised paths. Ranged fighters took the columns. Supports linked their spells into one shared shield. 2 movement users tried to keep my scout from reaching the back line. That was more dangerous. It was also familiar. Armored front, range behind, support holding the system together. The exact lesson the first dungeon party had given me. Target priority moved through formation link. Support first. The goblin could not reach them directly, so it marked the shared mana cords connecting the shield. The skeleton archer shot the first cord. The students reinforced the second. The stone lizard lifted a wall of arena stone against the ranged barrage. The baby ogre planted behind it, then pushed the whole section forward like a moving shield. Fire, ice, and wind struck the wall. The ogre grunted but kept moving. I stayed in its shadow. Movement users came around both sides. The goblin marked them half a second before they appeared. I used clearing step to meet the first, cut the mana line around his ankle, and let his own speed carry him into the sand. The second turned in time. The skeleton pinned the edge of his coat to a column. He stopped so abruptly his boots left the ground. The support group changed casting order. Formation link widened under the pressure. Timing share unlocked. For one instant, the 4 summons did not simply receive my commands. They felt the exact moment I meant. The lizard lowered the stone wall. The skeleton fired through the opening. The goblin cut the reinforced cord. The ogre struck the central shield with both hands. I used weak line cut on the shared link. The whole combination ended in the same heartbeat. The shield vanished. Nobody expected it to disappear while every individual spell still held. The mages lost balance. The support team fell backward. The second wave stopped. Then the arena began taking more than the students could afford. A windcaster tried to stand and produced only a thin breath of air. A fighter stared at his hands. My mana is not recovering. Another student checked her status. I had half left. The red lines under them glowed brighter. Because the arena is eating it, I shouted. The crowd heard. The students heard. The king heard. The king heard. Continue the evaluation, he ordered. That was the wrong answer. Even Dachi's supporters looked toward the throne. Maki moved before the doubt could spread. She extended both hands. Lifesteal opened across the arena in a web of dark roses. At first, the threads attached to practice constructs released from the beast ring. Then they reached the students who were already down. A girl trapped beneath the net gasped as red light left her chest. A weapon user's reinforced aura collapsed entirely. Maki drew all of it into herself. Her hair lifted, her eyes brightened, mana gathered around her so thick the air shimmered. Then she sent one narrow stream toward Dachi. Most of the stolen power stayed with her. I am supporting the commander, she said. You are draining classmates who cannot move. They agreed to fight for the crown. They did not agree to become your potion. Maki's expression hardened. Winning requires sacrifice. The words traveled farther than she intended. The girl beneath the net heard them. So did everybody Maki had called a friend that week. Minus and Brevere. Weak line cut showed her like steel web as one bright root with dozens of smaller branches. I crossed 2 clearing steps, turned under a red lash and cut the root. The webs snapped. Tile, buns, bills. Stolen mana fell back into the people nearest her in uneven pulses. Maki stumbled. The glow around her dropped by half. For the first time, her skill looked exactly like what it did. She looked from Dachi's failing side to me. Then she changed her voice. Tommy, I can help you expose the king. The sentence was so quick it almost impressed me. Protect me, and I will tell them you were right. You keep changing sides and calling it survival. I am trying not to lose everything. You keep treating people like things you can stand beside until something better appears. I stepped past her. She reached for my arm. The stone lizard raised a small ridge between us. Maki stared at it. Even the ground had rejected the offer. Daki entered the center zone alone. He had another blue accelerator vial in his hand. The senior instructor stood from his seat. Do not drink that. Daki pulled the stopper with his teeth. You all saw him embarrass me because my beast was tired. The minotaur behind him struck its fists together. It had not been tired, it had been unwilling. Dachi drank. Mana erupted through his body in black arcs. The royal harness around the minotaur lit at the same time. Both of them grew inside their own auras. Dachi's weapon stretching into a heavy black blade while the beast's horns lengthened and its muscles swelled. The crowd roared. This was the kind of power they understood. Big, loud, expensive. Daki pointed the blade at me. All you have done is hide behind little monsters. I recalled the 4 summons into the stable. The arena went quiet. Dachi smiled. I kept the aura blade low at my side. Now what? He asked. Now I show you what I did while you were learning to shout. He crossed the distance in one reinforced charge. Day 1. That speed would have ended the fight before I moved. Day 7. His mana announced every weakness before his body reached it. The accelerator had overfilled his right shoulder. His left knee reinforcement arrived late. The aura around his blade flared strongest at the edge and thinned near the guard. Weak lines everywhere. I moved 1 step outside the strike. Clearing step did not activate because Dachi was not a dungeon creature and I had not defeated anything. Good. I needed to prove the rest of my growth was mine. His blade struck stone. I cut the reinforcement around his wrist. The weapon stayed intact. His grip failed. Dachi caught it with the other hand and spun into a second strike. I reinforced my legs, lowered my center, and let the flat of his blade pass over my shoulder. The aura blade touched the dark mana around his ribs. Weak line cut. Half his body reinforcement flickered out. He stumbled, not because I was stronger, but because he had expected magic to support weight it no longer carried. Daki recovered with anger instead of balance. That made the next move easier. He attacked high. I stepped inside, struck the guard, and turned his blade into the sand. The point buried itself. I placed my weapon against his chest without cutting. The entire exchange had lasted 6 breaths. The crowd did not cheer. They were busy replacing one story with another. Dachi looked at the blade at his chest, then at me. No. He refused the result like it needed his permission. Beast, tyrant, he screamed, crush him. The minotaur charged into the arena. Not toward me, toward the students nearest the central platform. Its eyes were wild from the accelerator. The dragon egg's sovereign aura had been growing inside my bag, and every beast in the arena could feel something they could not name. Daki pulled on the royal harness. Turn, I commanded you. The minotaur tore one control chain free. Students scattered. I released the stone lizard and baby ogre directly in its path. The lizard raised the ground. The ogre braced. They could redirect the charge. They could not stop the frenzy for long. The bag pulsed hard enough to bend the strap against my side. High-density sovereign mana detected. Maximum bloodline reconstruction, 100%. Hatching condition satisfied. Upgrade complete. Damaged dragon egg became primordial dragon godwhelp. Current level, 1. Bloodline rank, divine. Authority, ancestor of legendary beast lines. The bag opened by itself. Something climbed out using my sleeve. It was smaller than the goblin had been on day 2. Round silver belly, 4 little black claws, 2 folded wings too large for its body, a crown-shaped ridge of gold scales between bright blue eyes. The whelp reached my shoulder, looked around the arena, and sneezed one tiny spark. Dachi stared. Then he laughed. That is your dragon? The minotaur stopped mid-charge. Its front foot came down slowly. The black blade in its hand dropped into the sand. Then the giant beast lowered one knee. Every contracted beast in the arena reacted. Wolves flattened their ears and bowed. Birds landed. Armored mounts lowered their heads. Even the royal beasts outside the field turned toward my shoulder. Humans saw the status panel a second later. Primordial Dragon God Whelp. Level 1. Divine Bloodline Authority. Ancestor of legendary beast lines. Daki's laugh ended without sound. The whelp looked at his minotaur. It made one soft chirping noise. Sovereign calm activated. The frenzy left the beast's eyes. The unstable black aura thinned. I pointed toward Dachi, who had dropped to one knee as his accelerator crashed. Protect him, Frofton, to Est. The Minotaur looked at me, then at the tiny dragon. Then it picked Dachi up with one hand and moved him away from the glowing center platform. I had given his beast more useful direction in one sentence than Dachi had managed in 7 days. Dachi pushed weakly against its fingers. Put me down. Minotaur ignored him for his own safety. Maki stared at the dragon whelp on my shoulder. Her eyes moved from it to the king, then back to me. For once, there was no stronger person she could reach quickly enough. Several students lowered their weapons. The quiet boy from Hearthglen stepped between me and a royal guard. He was right about the arena, he said. Another student looked at the red lines beneath her feet. They are still pulling mana. The class turned toward the throne. The king saw the movement. He saw the dragon god. He saw the arc shepherd he had thrown outside the barrier standing at the center of every beast's attention. Then he stopped pretending the battle royale mattered. He placed both hands on the throne controls. The central platform opened. Red light surged through every arena line at once. Students dropped as their remaining mana was pulled downward. The royal barrier sealed over the crowd. My 4 summons spread to Formation Link, holding students away from the brightest channels. I planted the world anchor near the core. Space stabilized around us, but the siphon kept building. The king's voice carried through the arena. The measure is sufficient. Daki looked up from the Minotaur's hand. Measure for what? The sky split before the king answered. Not like lightning, like fabric pulled apart from the other side. Dark terrain appeared beyond the opening. Towers shaped from black stone. A red horizon, something enormous moving where the distance should have been. The crystal voice returned from everywhere at once. I told you, it said, he waits for no one. The person the crown called the enemy had just stopped the entire class without seriously harming them. Then the real owner of the ritual looked through the sky. Demon territory did not enter the arena through one doorway. It appeared over everything. Blue sky dimmed behind a red-black layer. Cracks opened above the stands, showing distant ground that did not belong to our world. Black towers leaned across a horizon too large to fit behind them. Heavy mana filled the air until breathing felt like pulling water into my lungs. The arena remained beneath my feet. So did somewhere else. The 2 places had been laid over each other by the ritual. A shape gathered inside the largest tier, not the demon lord's full body. The boundary could not hold that. An avatar formed from smoke, armor, and 2 pale eyes that looked down on the kingdom like it had already counted everything inside. The crowd stopped screaming. Fear reached a point where sound became useless. The king remained standing above the arena. He looked smaller than he had 7 days ago. The avatar spoke. The offering is thin. The words pressed against every surface. The king bowed his head. The summon batch developed more slowly than projected. Dachi heard him. So did everyone else. Offering, one student whispered. The red lines beneath us answered before the king did. They pulled again. Nah. Mana left students in visible streams, not all of it, enough to make knees buckle and skills disappear. The potion residue in their channels lit like hooks. The truth became simple once it stopped hiding. Every 100 years, the boundary between this kingdom and demon territory weakened. The crown had not summoned heroes because only outsiders could save the world. It summoned young people because our souls came from a place without this world's fixed mana patterns. Flexible, dense, easy to reshape. The kingdom awakened classes inside us. Drained us, overfilled us, then placed us in an arena designed to make us spend everything at once. The collected mana renewed a pact that kept demon territory from crossing fully during the Lord's waking cycle. We were saving the kingdom. That part had always been technically true. We were not the heroes. We were the payment. The quiet boy beside me stared at the king. You knew? The king finally looked at the students instead of the avatar. I knew what survival costs. Maki's face had gone white. Daki stopped fighting the Minotaur's grip. The demon lord's eyes moved across the class. 40 vessels, he said. Damaged, poorly ripened. 1 proper shepherd. His attention landed on me. The bag at my side tightened as if the space inside it had become aware of being seen. The royal advisor's old scripture appeared in a projection above the throne. The words were not meant for the crowd, but the ritual had opened every hidden layer at once. Carry the fallen lines, return them named. Hold living mana where no crown may mark it. Anchor the door between worlds. Arc Shepherd. The title had never meant a person who merely summoned monsters. It meant a living vault that could carry bloodlines, stabilize a boundary, and move mana without allowing either side to own it. The crown expected the ability to awaken among the students under royal control. The Arc Shepherd was supposed to guide beast energy into the ritual, reduce loss among valuable royal assets, and carry whatever the core could not hold. My public class had hidden the prophecy behind the word storage. The king had looked at a tiny bag, seen no attack power, and banished the one person his ritual actually needed. That was why the spy followed me. That was why the crown watched but did not retrieve me immediately. They needed to know whether the old scripture had truly appeared. The demon lord seemed amused. You discarded the hand meant to close your gate. The king's expression did not change. A ruler acts on the information available. No, I said. A ruler asks what an ability does before throwing it outside. His eyes sharpened. This is not a game, boy. That is why your mistakes matter. The arena core pulled harder. Students cried out. Dachi's minotaur lowered him carefully, then placed its body between him and the nearest ritual line. The dragon godwell pressed against my neck and released a soft pulse of sovereign mana that steadied every beast, but it could not replace what the arena was taking from humans. The king gripped the railing. You speak as though the choice is simple. The pact has protected millions for centuries. Every crown before mine paid what was required. A kingdom cannot ask whether each stone wishes to be part of the wall. We are not stones. You are outsiders. The words landed harder than any insult Dachi had used, not because they hurt me, because the king finally said the line his entire system was built around. Outsiders could be used without becoming part of the moral count. You summoned us without consent, I said. Hid the way home, lied about power, filled people with unstable mana, then called the result duty. The king looked toward the stands where his citizens watched. If the pact fails, those citizens disappear beneath demon territory. Would you trade their lives for 40 strangers? The demon lord laughed. The sound shook dust from the arena walls. You still think the bargain belongs to you. The largest crack in the sky widened. For one impossible second, another place appeared through it. A street under gray rain, power lines, a convenience store sign, a bicycle leaning against a railing. Earth, my world. The sight reached somewhere behind every plan I had made. I'd spent 7 days treating home like the third objective on a list, because lists were easier than admitting what the word meant. Familiar air, a language nobody needed translated, a place where monsters did not own the roads and kings did not summon classrooms into rituals. The demon lord turned the opening slightly, and I saw the school gate we had vanished from. The road recognizes you, he said. Your vault has touched both worlds. Step through. Take the creature's name to you. Leave the crown, the betrayer, the tyrant, and every fool who raised a hand against you. Maki looked at the doorway, then at me. The demon lord continued. I require only what was promised. Their excess mana, their flexible souls will survive long enough for the pact to close. Long enough? A student asked. The avatar did not answer. It did not need to. The route home was real. It was open. All I had to do was step aside. Dashi had mocked me in 2 worlds. Maki had treated me like a boyfriend only when kindness cost nothing. Most of the class had laughed in the hall, believed the king over the person who saved them, and attacked me for a better place in line. The king had banished me as broken equipment. I owed none of them forgiveness. Maki crawled 1 step toward me before the red line beneath her pulled her down again. Tommy, her voice shook. We were together. No, I said. You kept me nearby. I made a mistake. You made the same choice every time the room changed. Please. She looked at the open street from Earth. You cannot leave me here. I looked at her. I can protect you without pretending you chose me. That was all she got. Daki lifted his head. The arrogance was gone because exhaustion had removed the energy needed to perform it. Was Beast Tyrant fake? He asked the king. The king said nothing. The demon lord answered. High output, low compatibility, an excellent vessel. Daki looked at the minotaur shielding him. For the first time, he seemed to understand the beast had never been proof he was chosen. It was another number in the king's calculation. The quiet boy from Hearthglen pushed himself upright. You warned us. 2 more students stood with him. Then the girl whose burned hands I had treated. They did not suddenly become brave enough to erase what happened. They simply ran out of comfortable lies. The demon lord extended 1 armored hand toward the earth doorway. Choose, Arc Shepherd. I wanted to go home. That mattered. A choice is not moral because the wrong option has no appeal. The doorway showed everything I had placed at the end of my 7-day map. But the condition was letting someone else decide what my anger made me. The king wanted me to accept that outsiders could be spent. The demon lord wanted me to accept that betrayal made abandonment inevitable. Both offers required me to become a result of what other people had done. I was tired of being defined that way. I planted the world anchor into the central platform. Silver roots of light spread through the arena. The earth doorway stopped flickering. The demon lord's eyes narrowed. I refuse the bargain, I said. The king exhaled in relief too early. I refuse yours too. I looked at the students. I am not saving you because you earned it from me. I am saving you because neither of them gets to choose what kind of person I become. The red arena lines surged. The demon lord's avatar stepped farther through the boundary. Black shapes poured from the cracks around him. Armored hounds, winged shadows, and tall constructs built from smoke around bright red cores. The final problem arranged itself. Stop the extraction, keep the portal stable, push the manifestation back, preserve the coordinates home, and do it with a field full of people whose mana had already been taken. I activated Formation Link at full range. The 4 summons appeared across the arena zones. Goblin Scout landed in the broken column section. The skeleton archer took the highest remaining platform. The baby ogre planted beside the world anchor. The stone lizard pressed its body into the central floor and mapped every siphon channel below us. The dragon god whelp climbed from my shoulder to the top of the anchor, spread its tiny wings, and released sovereign calm across every contracted beast. Then I pointed at the students. We used the same formation you should have learned before the crown filled you with potions. Weapon users looked at me. Defend the ritual nodes. Do not chase. Mages raised tired hands. Attack only what the skeleton marks. 1 clean spell is worth 10 unstable ones. Supports gathered around the collapsed students. Stabilize bodies first, mana second. I looked at Maki. Lifesteal only from demon constructs. Every bit goes into the support circle. Keep any for yourself, and I cut the channel. Her face tightened. Then she nodded. I looked at Dashi. His minotaur stood over him, watching the dragon god. Stop ordering it. What? Ask. Daki stared at me like the word belonged to a language he had not learned. A winged shadow dropped toward 3 exhausted students. Minotaur moved to intercept on instinct. Daki swallowed whatever answer he wanted to give. Please, he said to the beast, hold the center. The Minotaur turned its head. For 1 breath, nothing happened. Then it lifted Dachi onto one shoulder and stepped beside the baby ogre. Not because Beast Tyrant forced it, because it chose the job. The first wave of demon constructs struck the arena. The stone lizards shifted the floor and broke their line. Weapon users held the gaps instead of running forward. The skeleton marked red cores with pale arrows. Mages fired only at those marks. The goblin scout ran between zones, cutting loose students from ritual bands and marking new cracks before more enemies formed. Maki opened lifesteal on 1 downed construct. Red energy rushed toward her. I watched the root line. She hesitated, then redirected all of it into the support circle. The burned hand girl's breathing steadied. Maki looked almost surprised that giving power away could make people look at her without suspicion. The baby ogre and Daki's minotaur held the world anchor together. One was small, trained, and perfectly linked. The other was massive, proud, and acting by choice for the first time. The anchor kept the overlapping worlds from collapsing. It also kept the road home visible beyond the demon lord. He looked at the formation and smiled without warmth. Then prove your vault can carry a kingdom's debt. The arena core opened beneath me. It was larger than my stage 3 capacity should have allowed. A sphere of red crystal and black metal, packed with a century of ownership seals. Every line in the arena ran into it. Every stolen thread of mana turned inside it like light trapped in deep water. The public system called it the 100-year Covenant Core. My bag called it something else. Realm-linked object detected. Maximum stable form available. Current storage capacity insufficient. The demon lord raised his hand. The avatar's pressure drove every person in the arena lower. Dragon god whelp answered with a cry too small for the authority inside it. Divine mana flowed into the bag. Formation Link fed 4 named bloodlines into the same space. The world anchors stabilized the boundary around us. The storage system expanded. Storage stage 4 unlocked. Realm-linked object capacity available. I opened the bag toward the core. The little leather mouth widened no more than it ever had. The space behind it reached across the whole platform. The 100-year Covenant core vanished. Every ritual line went dark. For half a second, the arena was free. Then a timer appeared. Maximum upgrade initiated. 100-year Covenant core processing. Estimated completion, 8 minutes. Demon Lord looked at the empty platform. The king looked as though I had removed the floor beneath his throne. 8 minutes. That was all we had to hold 2 worlds apart while my tiny bag decided what a century of sacrifice should have been. The first minute disappeared under pressure. Without the Covenant core, the arena stopped feeding the Demon Lord. It also stopped obeying the kingdom. Every sealed crack opened wider. Demon constructs dropped through in groups, each one built around a red mana point the skeleton archer could see and almost nobody else could. Target marks spread through Formation Link. The skeleton fired. 1 pale arrow struck a core above the forest zone. 3 mages followed the mark with 1 combined spell instead of 3 separate guesses. Wind narrowed the fire. Ice contained the edges. The construct broke apart before it landed. Perfect Harvest recognized the fragments. Hundredfold drop bloom activated. Red shards multiplied across the ground, but they were not monsters, and the blade did not create more enemies. It multiplied what could be used from the defeated manifestation. Demon Mana Fragment X1 became Refined Mana Fragment X100. Luke Great Ascension applied. I swept the aura blade through the pile. The fragments became clear purple crystals. "Supports!" I called. The goblin scout loaded them into a stolen helmet and ran the crystals across the field. The support students cracked them inside their circles. Mana spread through the exhausted group in controlled waves. The blade that had turned cleanup into treasure now turned an invasion into supplies. That was the advantage of an economy skill in a battle. Everything the enemy lost became something our side could spend. 7 minutes remained. The Demon Lord's avatar lowered one hand. Gravity changed in the water zone. Students fell forward as if the floor had tilted toward the skycrack. The stone lizard dug in and spread terrain grip through the platform. Low ridges rose around ankles and boots, giving people something to brace against. The baby ogre held the world anchor with both hands. Daki's minotaur planted behind it and wrapped one arm around the silver stake. The avatar pushed harder. The ogre's feet slid. The minotaur bent at the knees. Dachi clung to one horn. "Hold," he yelled. The minotaur glanced at him. Dachi caught himself. "Please hold." The beast faced forward again. Its aura stabilized for the first time all week. Not because Dachi dominated it, because command had finally become cooperation. A crack opened behind them. The goblin's danger ping reached me before the creature crossed. I used clearing step through 2 lesser hounds the weapon line had already downed. Burst step. Weak line cut through 1 red core. Second step. The chain carried me behind the ogre. A winged construct reached for the anchor. I cut the mana joint connecting its arm to the body. The skeleton's arrow struck the core a heartbeat later. The remains became another 100 refined fragments. 6 minutes, 20 seconds. Formation link widened with every zone. The scout gave me routes. The archer gave me weak points. The ogre gave me impact timing. The lizard gave me the shape of the floor. The dragon god gave every beast one shared calm beneath it all. Information should have torn my focus apart. Instead, the whelp's presence organized it by instinct. Beasts did not think in explanations. Threat, pack, path, protect. The link became simpler as the battle became larger. The king recovered enough to issue an order. Royal Guard, reclaim the anchor, restore the covenant pattern. Nobody moved. The guards had watched the students collapse. They had heard the word offering. The king raised his voice. "If the pact fails, the city falls." One guard looked at the Demon Lord's avatar, then at me. "The boy is the one keeping the gate from closing on us. That boy is an unregistered anomaly." The guard lowered his spear. "So is the thing you invited." The crowd heard that too. Authority did not vanish all at once. It leaked through moments when an order arrived and people asked who would pay for obeying it. 5 minutes remained. The Demon Lord sensed something larger. A horned knight formed inside the central crack, carrying a blade made from compressed night. Its first swing broke the forest platform in half. Animals. Weapon users were thrown backward. One support barrier vanished on contact. The public panel could not read its level. My bag identified the part that mattered. Avatar Guard. Core hidden behind layered authority. External armor regenerates while connected to demon territory. We could not win by striking harder. We had to interrupt the connection. The skeleton archer could see mana nodes, but the guard carried dozens of false ones across its armor. The goblin scout circled it and marked movement. Stone lizard tracked where each step increased pressure beneath the floor. The real connection was not on the body. It was in the shadow. Every time the guard moved, one dark line remained attached to the rift behind it. Lizard pinned the shadow. Terrain grip spread. The floor rose beneath the dark line and caught it between 2 slabs of white stone. The guard turned. The baby ogre charged, not to overpower it, but to make it lift its blade. The minotaur joined from the other side. Large and small hit together. The guard stopped both with one hand. That was enough to expose the shadow line. The skeleton fired through it. The arrow slowed inside the darkness. Maki opened lifesteal on the connection. Red-black power surged toward her. Too much. Her eyes widened. The old version of her would have kept pulling until it made her the strongest person nearby. "Transfer," I said. She looked at the support circle, then at me. For 1 second, I could see the calculation. Keep it and become powerful enough to run. Give it away and trust people who no longer trusted her. She redirected the channel. The support students received the mana and reinforced the ogre, the minotaur, and the skeleton's arrow at once. The arrow broke through the shadow line. The avatar guard lost its connection. Its armor stopped regenerating. Target marks became real. Mages struck the left shoulder. Weapon users broke the knee. The goblin climbed the back and drove a stolen capture band around the horned helmet. The baby ogre pulled the band. The guard's head tilted. Weak line cut showed one white seam beneath the chest armor. Across the field on 3 clearing steps and put the aura blade into the seam. The construct broke into dark pieces. 100-fold drop bloom filled the central platform with resources. Gruss. Refined boundary metal, sovereign mana shards, 1 realm pressure stone, bag timer accelerated, external compatible resources absorbed, upgrade time reduced, 3 minutes, 41 seconds. The demon lord's eyes narrowed. You turn every loss into inventory. That is what storage is for. His avatar stepped fully onto the arena floor. The pressure alone extinguished half the remaining spells. Dragon God Whelp spread its little wings and stood on the world anchor. The avatar looked down at it. An infant wearing an ancestor's name. The whelp chirped. Every beast in the arena raised its head. The avatar released a wave of bloodline fear. Royal wolves whimpered. Flying beasts lost height. The minotaur's knees bent. The whelp answered with sovereign calm. The wave broke around it. Level 1, tiny body, absolute authority. The minotaur stood again. The stone lizard pushed forward. The baby ogre roared. For the first time, the demon lord's expression changed from amusement to interest. He struck toward the whelp. Dachi moved before I did. He slid from the minotaur's shoulder and threw the broken royal harness chain into the path of the attack. The chain meant nothing against the avatar's force. The minotaur understood the intent. It caught Dachi with one hand and placed its own body between the strike and the anchor. Dark force hit its shoulder. The beast dropped to one knee but did not release the stake. Dachi pressed both hands against its arm. I am sorry, he said. Not to me, to the creature he had spent 7 days treating like proof of his own greatness. The minotaur looked at him, then tightened its grip on the anchor. One useful choice did not erase Dachi. It made the next version of him possible. That was all redemption ever really was at the beginning. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. The demon lord attacked the formation instead of the anchor. He understood the link. A sweep of dark mana crossed the arena, creating false threats in every direction. Formation link flooded with danger marks. Too many. The goblin saw 6 openings. The skeleton saw 12 cores. The lizard felt every floor line move. The ogre felt impact coming from everywhere. My vision doubled, then split again. I dropped to one knee. Sensory overload. The skill's limitation had finally found a battlefield large enough to matter. The whelp jumped from the anchor to my head. Tiny claws gripped my hair. Sovereign pulse moved through the link. False fear vanished. Not false images, false importance. The whelp could not tell me what was real, but it could tell every bonded creature which threat belonged to the pack. 4 marks remained. Scout found the Riftcaster. Archer marked the core. Lizard locked the terrain. Ogre guarded the lane. I stood. Maki tried to move closer to the support circle and almost collapsed. Lifesteal had drained her own channels when the demon connection broke. A girl she had taken mana from earlier caught her arm. Maki looked at her in surprise. The girl did not smile. Do not make me regret that. Maki nodded. Consequences did not always look like punishment. Sometimes they looked like being helped by someone who remembered exactly what you had done. 2 minutes. The bag timer pulsed against my hip. World bridge conversion, 74%. The demon lord extended both arms. Every remaining crack widened. The earth doorway appeared again behind him. This time, it was close enough that I could hear traffic. Your bridge can still be yours alone, he said. Release the core. Walk away. The rest have already spent what the pact requires. Several students looked toward Earth. I did too. The offer was still real. That made refusing it again more important, not less. No. The avatar's hands closed. The overlapping territory began collapsing inward. The world anchors screamed through the stone. Cracks spread along its silver surface. The baby ogre wrapped both arms around it. The minotaur locked its hands over the ogres. Dachi joined them. Bal's sector and Bal's is braced around the base. Supports poured every recovered fragment into the stabilizing field. Maki opened lifesteal across the lesser demon hounds and transferred everything out as fast as she took it. The red glow around her never grew. For once, the proof of her usefulness was that she did not keep the power. 1 minute, 20 seconds. The avatar crossed the field toward me. There were no lesser creatures left close enough to feed clearing step. He knew the skill's limit. So did I. The aura blade was still a harvesting weapon. It became absurd after a weakness existed. I needed the formation to create one against something far beyond our level. The goblin scout ran straight at the avatar, a tiny legendary seed creature against the demon lord's projection. The avatar almost ignored it. That was the goblin's advantage. It threw every stolen capture band it had collected into the air. The skeleton archer fired through the rings. Each arrow carried one band onto a different joint of the avatar's armor. The bands could not bind him. They gave the stone lizard handles. Terrain grip caught the metal and pulled the avatar's stance half an inch out of alignment. The baby ogre left the anchor for 1 second, charged, and struck the back of the avatar's knee. The minotaur covered the anchor alone. The avatar did not fall. His weight shifted. The dragon god whelp released one sovereign cry. The bloodline pressure around the armor paused. Weak line cut showed one seam, not in the avatar. In the authority connecting the avatar to the pact the crown had signed. I could not cut the demon lord. I could cut the permission allowing him to stand here. 38 seconds. I ran. No clearing step. No easy chain. Just level 18 legs reinforced by the safe mana foundation the crown said did not exist. The avatar swung. The skeleton marked the path. The goblin warned left. The lizard raised one stone beneath my foot. The ogre caught the wind pressure with its body. I used all of them as one step. The aura blade reached the white seam. Weak line cut. The authority line opened. The avatar's armor cracked across the chest. He looked down at me. Clever. Back of his hand struck me across the arena. Impacted diffusion plates inside my coat shattered one after another. I hit the stone, lost air, and rolled before the next strike reached the same place. Full pain arrived. No graphic injury. Just the clear information that my body had reached its limit. 20 seconds. The avatar's open seam began closing. The skeleton fired every remaining arrow into it. Mages followed. Dachi's minotaur picked up the black weapon it had dropped earlier and threw it, not at me, but into the same gap. The baby ogre added its whole weight to the throw from below. The seam stayed open. 10 seconds. The baglight changed from red to white. Maximum upgrade complete. 100-year Covenant core became World Bridge core. Functions unlocked. Balanced mana transfer. 2 world coordinate recording. Forced ownership rejection. Stable 2-way root framework. The tiny bag opened. A spear of white-blue crystal rose from it, no larger than my head. The original core had been the size of a carriage. Maximum form was not always bigger. It was what remained after every useless part was removed. The World Bridge core hovered above the central platform. The arena lines reversed. Mana stopped flowing away from the students. Then it came back, not all at once, balanced, measured, enough to stand, enough to breathe, enough for each person's own channels to recognize their power again without breaking. The royal seals on the floor shattered. The demon territory seals shattered with them. No crown ownership, no pact ownership. The core belonged to the route itself. The king reached toward the throne control. Nothing answered him. The demon lord pulled on the avatar connection. The world bridge rejected the claim. The authority seam I had opened widened through his entire projection. The dragon god whelp spread its wings. The 4 summons locked into formation link. Every student followed the marked weak points. Weapon users held the avatar in place. Mages struck the open lines. Supports fed stable mana into the world bridge. Now, Maki pulled energy from the last demon constructs and returned it to the circle. Daki stood beside his minotaur instead of in front of it. I raised the mythical aura blade. The whole formation created one weakness. I harvested it. Perfect harvest activated. The avatar broke into sovereign fragments. 100-fold drop balloon converted the usable energy into a storm of clear mana shards. Luke Great Ascension refined them before they touched the ground. The world bridge core absorbed the shards. The earth doorway brightened. The demon lord's projection was forced backward through the sky crack. He did not scream. He laughed once, low and distant. The path knows you now, shepherd. The cracks closed around him. The crown is not the only hand guarding the second key. Then demon territory vanished. Blue sky returned above the arena. The earth doorway remained for 3 seconds longer. Long enough for the world bridge core to record coordinates. Long enough for me to see rain hitting the school gate. Long enough to know home had not been a lie. Then the doorway narrowed to a line and disappeared. Route coordinates recorded. Passage incomplete. Missing requirement. Second world key. Minimum energy threshold not met. Objective 3 did not end with an open door. It ended with a map. That was enough for 7 days. The World Bridge core revealed one more thing before the arena returned to normal. Forced ownership rejection did not only strip the current seals, it opened the records hidden inside them. White pages of light spread across the sky where demon territory had been. Cycle 100 years prior, summoned vessels 41, mana received. Return calibration completed. Return passage withheld. Cycle 200 years prior, summoned vessels 38, mana received. Return calibration completed. Return passage withheld. The records continued. Names replaced numbers as the world bridge translated deeper layers. Students from worlds like mine. Teachers, siblings, people to kingdom songs called heroes because songs could not answer questions. Each cycle ended with the same 2 lines. Pact renewed. Surviving vessels retained under crown authority. The crowd read them. Royal guards read them. The students read them while their own returned mana moved through their bodies. An old man in the stands began crying before anyone understood why. He pointed at one name from a cycle decades before his birth. The name matched a statue outside the palace. A foreign hero the kingdom claimed had chosen to remain and guard them forever. The record said something else. Return requested. Request denied. The king shouted for the projection to be closed. The world bridge did not recognize his authority. A final record appeared. Second world key separated from covenant system after cycle 3. Custodial transfer restricted. The destination had been removed from the crown's copy, leaving only a black seal shaped like an eye inside a broken circle. The demon lord's warning made sense. The kingdom had hidden the road. Somebody else held the part that opened it. This was larger than one king and one ritual, but for the first time, it was a problem with a shape, a symbol, a missing object, a trail. The world bridge stored the record beside the earth coordinates. Then the pages of light folded inward and vanished. The king could no longer call the ritual an emergency invention or my accusation a bitter fantasy. A century of receipts had been read aloud over his own capital. The arena returned to itself. Students lay across broken stone and shallow water, exhausted but alive. The crowd stayed silent because cheering would have required deciding which part they had just witnessed was acceptable. The dragon god whelp landed on my shoulder and curled its tail around my neck. Every beast in the arena remained facing it with instinctive respect. The 4 summons gathered around me. The goblin scout wore a royal medal. It definitely had not been awarded. The skeleton archer had no arrows left and still stood at attention. The baby ogre leaned against the minotaur's leg. The stone lizard settled over a broken ritual line like it intended to keep it from ever lighting again. A royal examiner approached with no idea what title to use. The scanner still floated beside him. Storage carrier. The words looked embarrassed now. "What are you?" he asked. I looked at the tiny leather bag. "The one item your kingdom failed to appraise." The answer moved through the stands. The king tried to recover the room. Guards seized the core and detained the anomaly. No guard moved. The captain of the royal line removed his helmet. On what charge? Interference with a sovereign pact. The pact used summoned children as fuel. It protected this city. So did he. That was the moment the king lost control. Not when the ritual failed. When his order arrived and the people whose obedience made him king asked whether it deserved to exist, royal officials began speaking over one another. Some demanded the king step down from ritual authority. Some wanted the students moved to neutral guild protection. Some wanted the world bridge core locked in the deepest treasury before anybody understood it. I stored the core before they finished the sentence. Stage 4 accepted it easily. The bag returned to looking like it could barely carry lunch. A minister approached me with 3 scribes and the careful smile of someone trying to place new ownership over a situation that had just rejected the old kind. "The crown recognizes the extraordinary nature of your class. We can grant rank, title, residence, and protected research status." "No." He blinked. "You have not heard the terms." I heard the word protected. Protection from the crown sounded too much like storage where the object did not choose the container. I gave him my terms instead. Legal independence for me and every creature bonded through my bag. No seizure claim. The scribes wrote, compensation and permanent dragon root protection for Hearthglen and the border villages used as training grounds. More writing. Release every summoned student from forced royal service. They can stay, join a guild, or help investigate the route home. Their choice. The minister looked toward the king. The royal guards did not. And full access to the summoning archives, ritual records, and every document mentioning a return route or second world key. That information is restricted. I touched the bag. So was the ritual. He looked at the arena, the students, the crowd, and the throne nobody was listening to. Provisional agreement, he said, publicly. The scribes read the terms aloud. The crowd heard. That made them harder to erase later. Daki found me after the supports restored enough strength for him to walk. His minotaur followed without a harness. He stopped several steps away. There was no crowd close enough for him to perform at. "Why did you save me?" he asked. "I was saving everyone." "That is not an answer. It is the only one you get." He looked at the minotaur. The beast looked back. Dachi lowered his voice. "I thought power meant it had to listen. You thought everything near you was proof of something about you." He did not argue. That was new. We were not friends. One useful choice in the arena did not erase years in the classroom or 7 days here, but the minotaur walked beside him rather than behind him when he left. That was enough consequence for the moment. Maki waited near the gate. Of course, she chose a place I had to pass. Her lifesteal aura was gone. Without it, she looked like the same girl who used to hold my sleeve after school and tell me she had not meant to laugh. "I did help at the end," she said. "You did. I gave the power back." "You did." She waited for the sentence that restored everything. It did not come. "Can we start over?" "No." Her eyes filled, though I could not tell how much was grief and how much was the shock of a door not opening when she finally chose it. I said I was sorry. Sorry matters, it does not reverse time. You saved me. Saving you was my choice. Dating you again would also be my choice. She looked down. For once, she had no stronger shoulder to move toward. The king's authority had cracked. Daki was rebuilding a relationship with his own beast. The royal knight she had watched during training was helping carry injured students. Maki would have to discover who she was when positioning stopped working. That was not my job. News reached the border villages before sunset. The banished storage porter had returned. The king's evaluation had been a ritual. The summoned students were free. Hearthglen's dragon route would receive royal repair funds and an independent guild watch. The first innkeeper sent a message through the guild network. It contained 6 words. Keep the room, it is yours. The room was damp, small, and probably still smelled like wet wood. It was the first place in this world where somebody had listened before deciding what I was worth. I kept it. 7-day plan progress. Bankroll secured. EXP engine secured. Route home confirmed. Status, door located. Passage incomplete. Next objective, find the second world key and enough power to hold the route open. I walked out of the arena with the same tiny bag hanging from my shoulder. Inside, it rested the world bridge coordinates, upgraded tools, a mythical blade, and enough stable space for an army that had only started growing. The goblin scout walked along the wall beside me until it saw a guard watching, then pretended it had not stolen the man's keyring. The skeleton archer carried a new bundle of practice arrows. Baby Ogre and Dachi's Minotaur exchanged one serious nod across the courtyard. The stone lizard followed the warm side of the road. The primordial dragon god whelp sat on my head because apparently divine authority did not include balance. People stopped as we passed. 7 days earlier, they had seen a boy with no combat skill and a bag too small to hold 2 coins. Now, the bag looked exactly the same. That was still my favorite part. They gave everyone else a combat skill and called my bag useless. 7 days later, that bag held the only army they could not command and the only road that could take us home.